placard. Can you just put it up, please? Just make sure we have enough people. Thank you very much, everyone. We are now at quorum, so we can get started at 6:35. All right, we're going to jump right in with motion one. Motion one, whereas an agenda was made and whereas we need to approve it, be resolved that council approve the agenda of the council meeting of March 20th as circulated on the council newsletter. Moved by Chloe last agenda the classic, seconded by Madeline last council provo. Is there an opening from either of our movers? Seeing none, is there any debate on motion one? Can I have order at council, please? We're going to have a break very soon. Thank you very much. Seeing no debate on motion one, is there a closing from either of our movers? No. All right, motion one, whereas an agenda was made and whereas we need to approve it, be it resolved that council approve the agenda of the council meeting of March 20th as circulated on the council newsletter. Moved by Chloe McLeod, seconded by Madeline Provo. Can I see votes for the motion, please? Votes for the motion one. Thank you very much. Motion one passes. Hooray. Motion two, whereas it's been some amount of time since the last council and whereas and the minutes have been written, be it resolved that council approves the meeting's minutes for the council on March 6th. Moved by Chloe, what special minutes in classic? Seconded by Madeline, 230 minutes to be exact. Provo. Is there an opening from either of our movers? No. Seeing none, is there any debate on motion two? Seeing none, is there a closing from either of our movers? All right, motion two, whereas it's been some amount of time since the last council and whereas as the minutes have been written, be resolved that council approves the meeting minutes for the council on March 6th. Moved by Chloe McLeod, seconded by Madeline Provo. Can I see votes for the motion, please? How wonderful. Motion two passes. Great. and get used to their pronouns. Yeah, a couple of quick things, that's all. I'm going to start, as I usually do, by acknowledging the land on which we stand, or sit. It's traditional land of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people. They reside here from time immemorial. I'm an uninvited guest on this land, and so I'd like to take the time at the start of council to acknowledge how grateful and lucky and privileged I am to be learning on this land, as well as being here with all of you. On that note, this is the last council of the year, which is kind of crazy. Thank you for letting me speak. It's been a real wonder and a privilege, and I am so proud to have done it. That is it for my senior statements. You will never hear from me again. Okay, we're going to move into our presentations, starting with the exec year-end presentation from the current outgoing exec. Sorry for interrupting your presentation. Sorry, I couldn't order.
We had the first LRPM that the Society's had, long-range planning meeting, in, I think they said 5 years or something like that. So we talked a lot about what the next 5 years are going to look like, Jay's retirement, hiring of a second staff member, what's going to happen when the dean turns over, some big milestones that are upcoming. Yeah, you talk about printing, that's not much.
So yeah, we also started free black and white printing, which is something that they actually pitched to us and we thought it was a good idea. So yeah, that's the thing. We are still charging for color, but black and white, yay.
We've also been continuing with that BFA job split. We moved a couple things around, but not too much, but we're pretty happy with where the split is now. Yes, as you guys all saw, being moved over to jobs.
We definitely had some other initiatives too. We also got an NSHOT banner. It's just a plain banner with our logo. It should have no
Main points of focus for me have been a lot of work with the AMS that's been a pretty big one this year. So for OWE, we got back into the proper spaces that we typically use for Highlands and Teamouts, because the year that we did OWE when I was a director, prior to this one, we had like this weird spot in City Park that had no trees and everyone got heat stroke and sucked. So we are back to the proper part of City Park, and that's been good. Generally, it's been a little bit more in communication with the City of Kingston. Have sort of gotten some clarification on bed fund. Unfortunately, the clarification we've gotten is not the clarification that we would have liked to get, but we have information now. Yeah, we've been establishing more recently some contact with the people running the Reimagining Engineering Education project. Kevin Mofford is the new associate dean of that, and we've set up some sort of frameworks for how that's going to be running next year. Because I know a common criticism this year has been that we are not particularly in the loop about that. Lots of work keeping, random, just dealing with billings and stuff with the AMS. This year's the most complex formal build that we've had since pre-COVID. This is the first year that we had anything overhead. We got an engineer who actually came in and stamped the drawing, so that was cool. And then the Iron Ring ceremony. The ceremony hasn't been changed. There hasn't been nearly as much of a push from graduating students as there was last year in terms of the ceremony. Like last year, I think it was because it was the first time there was a really big outrage that we didn't really see this year. It's the ceremony hasn't been changed, but we do have a bit more regular contact with them through our Side 5 executives, because they've actually been having meetings and they're in touch, so that's been added as well.
Yeah, so my big ones is we worked on trying to make VOE a little more like user friendly and front facing. So that was a big thing to do with Adam and Stuco. So now we're working on a transaction track. We actually just finished it. That's kind of why I related consoles to everyone. But that's basically will show everyone all of the purchases they've made so that they can see a lot better of their actual account balance. The other half of that is working on QuickBooks. QuickBooks is our accounting software that has been way off since pre-COVID, so working on that to actually reflect the account balances that are in the account. Then updated like the templates to reflect to now work with due to from attributions, which Lily will talk about later, but basically just making sure that all of the due to from accounts will stay balanced and not end up being crazy high numbers that they were before. Upkept some of the automations from last year to kind of make sure that stuff is still able to run smoothly in the lab and that kind of stuff, little ones. And then other than that, supported my directors because they all killed it, and it's really easy to look really nice when your directors all kill it. So shout out you 3.5, the half thingy, because it's fun. Anyways, thanks guys.
Okay. So, first thing, completed an audit. That was super fun. Not fun at all, but it got done. That was super important. It's the first audit that we've ever completed as Engineering Society. It was only for Clark, but it was required by the university for Clark to continue to be open. I also restructured Science Quest with Charlie just to make a management team that made a lot more sense. I think will be a lot more effective this year. I started the process for researching outboard feedback with Yaya, and I will be passing this off to Jacob. I also dealt with all of our taxes. That was super fun. We are up to date on all of our taxes, so that's super cool. We weren't for a while, and over COVID, that just got out of hand. So unfortunately, we did incur some penalties, but we're starting fresh. Everything is paid. I tracked down all the issues with our accounting systems on the services side, so that's the due to from accounts that you guys have heard me talk about probably endlessly this year. There were a lot of issues, COVID especially affected them, but they continued to be bad in years after COVID. So it seems like I figured out all the issues that were causing the problem, or all the things causing the issues. So hopefully this isn't an issue for the next year's team. And I've also dealt with a lot of Stuco and Clark Coco stuff, especially relating to QP since they're going to be open, and that's going to stress Stucons more than they have in the past. I also worked on the procurement and purchase of a new tea room fridge. So anyone who was around last year may have known me as director of Frozen Fridges. Not anymore. I also attained Instagram fame at EP Flops. That's not important. I just wanted to put that there. And I kept the services servicing and the operations operating.
Great, so this year, a lot of the stuff has been just continuing, building off what's the great changes that happened last year, as well as just keeping the society afloat and getting students engaged in a variety of different facets, especially that all of the directors under me have done great work in. So it was a lot of me supporting that and their different initiatives through different ratifications, different events, and a lot of working together in making that all happen. But shout out to all of the 6 of you, you're awesome. Some examples of like policy changes are stuff with the design team charters and whatnot. And then of course lots of meetings that we all attend, but working especially hard with Jack and a lot of advocacy with the AMS and as with other faculty societies to build good relations and learn from them, and then also show how we operate so they can adjust their operations similarly if they want to. We've been figuring out the role of the SDPR lead, especially after Danny sort of left, and it was more so a big passion project for that exec, and just figuring that out, how it's going to look in the future. So that's a lot of the stuff's just in the works in the back end. I paid for a lot of pizza, and oh, and like we ordered whiteboard markers. I ordered a lot of stuff, which was kind of fun as our estimate. But so if you didn't get an edge stock whiteboard marker, like stop by the lounge.
Happy to take questions about any specific stuff if people are curious. That was a pretty high-level overview. There's no motion associated with your overview.
Kabazi, we share. Is there a presentation of the actuals also?
Yeah, that's up.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Right now.
Okay. Because in the agenda it says that's the summer budget, and I got confused.
That's also.
I have it
Yeah,
up
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
That's
I
my
see.
bad.
We have to,
Before we just go on
we have to
presentation.
pass the motion to add this agenda to our, yeah, okay, so let's do that. I didn't know there was.
Okay.
I have the second.
Probably do a quick procedural motion then, just to.
Yeah, if you guys want a motion, then we are.
Yeah, like a motion.
Seconded. All right, this is a procedural motion, so we'll move right in. They could have been, yeah. All right, can I see votes for the motion to see the second presentation, please? Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Are there any abstentions? It passes. Hooray. Operational budget.
Cool.
Anyone else?
Oh, yeah, okay, yes.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, any other questions? Come find us after too, if you want to right now.
Finally.
Don't worry, I Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move into presentation on the operational budget.
Okay, so hi guys, I'm Andrew, I'm the good man, this is Adam, Director of Finance. First off, sorry that these presentations were so last minute, totally my fault, it's been a crazy busy week and I just didn't know to submit them on time, so apologies everyone for that. That being said, these are our actuals for the year. Okay, yeah, so as I said, these are all of the ED team operational expenses from essentially September to about March. The end gets a little bit tricky just because obviously we are still making purchases and we have lots of like, obviously it's kind of a tradition, not a tradition, that's not a good word, but historically we are severely under budget, so that is obviously true this year. If you look at our projected, it was way higher, but essentially that is our total expenses that anyone has made, our total revenue, and that is our operating surplus. That being said, this doesn't account for obviously two major things. So NSERV, which is what we collect from the services, which is like a fee that we charge them for essentially using our services all year long. That includes things like printing and Jay's help and that, yada yada yada. The other thing is appreciation still. So big ones that are still left is the Enchilada banquet, which is a big one, as well as like individual teams like merch and that kind of stuff, which will obviously add up when you have so many people that work on it.
Some of the notable items contributing to the expenses. The Director of External Relations portfolio, which spent about $23,000. Major contributors to that are the CFES and ESCO conference expenses. The Director of External Processes has a projected expense of about $14,000 for the awards banquet. Professional development, about $17,000 on a bunch of various expenses, which is lower than it was projected due to certain events not happening and certain expenses just not working. The more notable expenses, President appreciation, about $14,000. Again, it's projected to be much higher as the end of the year comes. More appreciation is given to all the teams. And then the executive and administrative expenses, including the general manager salary, various taxes, various accounting fees, is projected to be by the end of about $240,000.
Okay, so look at our revenue. For student fees from the AMS, we collected about $155,000. That being said, that was 85% of it, so we actually were supposed to be about $167,000. Sorry, $167,000. That being said, from that, our original student fee is actually about $300,000. But then from that, there's kind of two main fees that are like taken away before we get to see it even, which is Jay's salary and any ORT expenses. So that's why, if you're wondering why the numbers don't number, they actually do. I just didn't put all of them in. That being said, our other sources of revenue that are pretty big are the Imagines poster sale. The projected check is about $16,000. That being said, we're still in contact with Fabian, who is the guy from the poster sale. We're still trying to get him to write the check. So although we have that is what is projected from the Fabian side. That being said, our other kind of big revenue is the PD budget, which is about $4,370. So, yeah. Questions?
Lucas Baylog Engineering Center. Sorry, can you clarify the Director of External Relations? That's a $23,000 surplus because we haven't paid those two conferences yet. Am I understanding that right?
Those are the expenses from this year.
So the Director of External Relations spent $23,000 or $24,000 this whole year, but it's not yet finalized because of those two conferences. Is that what you were talking about? I was confused.
No,
about
so
that.
that's the actual so far.
I have a point for information. Those aren't conferences, those are organizations that host the conferences. So the point was CFPS and ESCO conference expenses are like all the flights and travel and delegate fees to attend the conferences that we attend.
So do you still have $23,000 to spend?
No, but like that is the amount of money that was spent so
That's a
far.
negative surplus.
Okay.
Anything above
That's
that-
a deficit of $23,000. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Sorry, the Director of Externals is not in a deficit of $23,000 for the year. The current budget has a net surplus of $23,000. There is more money to be spent, A, because there's some stuff that we've done that we haven't paid for, and B, because there's some stuff that isn't necessary, such as, like, we budget generally very high for travel, and then inevitably plane tickets don't always cost the maximum amount they could possibly cost. Is that?
Oh, I have clarification. If I
Yeah.
may. Okay, Connor Rosa, your chair. The clarification that I understood from that is that we have not made $23,000. It's just $23,000 unspent from the DOER budget.
Versus the like 40 grand that we had budgeted.
Yes.
Yes, Connor.
That is what
That
that
is
is.
Okay, so we're 23,000 under budget.
Yes.
Yes.
No, sorry. We spent $43,000, we projected about $40,000, so we're 17 under what we budgeted.
Oh, it actually was 23.
This is what we spent.
Okay, can I ask a follow-up question based on that information?
Yes.
Okay, if we're 17,000 under budget, then why were we trying, what was the whole kerfuffle about trying to find money to send people to Canadian engineering competition?
It was more just if you look at like the specific of Ethan's budget check.
Or sorry.
Like all I was gonna say is that we were just like the thing with our operations budget is it has to be approved to everyone here. So like you can really only move so much around. So that's why we had to keep coming to council. That's all I was gonna say.
Okay.
I see your point.
As an addition to that, like, we're 17 under budget right now, but like when we realized we had 10 CEC delegates, we didn't know that that was gonna be the case at the end of the year, right? Like we didn't, like you don't,
Perfect,
like you don't
thank
have a good way of knowing at the end of the year we will have this much spare money and it will be this budget line, this budget line, and this budget line, so we can reallocate it. Like this kind of only shakes out in the end, right? Like hindsight is 20/20.
Okay.
I just, or maybe, or ECE rep, can you just show us like the actual budget, like the Excel sheet you just had it, so that you can see it more easily? Is that possible?
Actuals?
Is it like an operating budget?
It's fine to have either this presentation or the.
It's not in the council appendix,
I
but
think, like you just wanna see like our actual budget.
Yeah, it would just be easier for everyone, I think, if we could just see the actual budget, so that we can just.
what's the procedure we need to add it? Bring it up now.
Like, do you wanna go through a specific budget?
I mean, well, if people have, I don't know, questions, like, usually we could just then look through it easily instead of, so there wouldn't be the problem that we had where we were wondering if it was 23 over or under because we can see the actual budget. Does that make sense? Yeah,
It's on it, you're on it.
Oh, I'm already here.
yeah, you're on it.
Just drag, on board, just drag it up.
And I do have a second question actually. For oh yeah, I think that was yeah. For the banquet, you know, have like a very specific like quote for how much it's gonna cost, or is that just like you don't
the specific thing
Yeah.
with quote, it was just like other costs, like the busing, kind of like other, like that's why it's like, but yeah, we have the specific like tax code from the Delta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Ben Dimmer, EC Pres. Quick question. So you're talking about how you have a surplus for like you're in the green, or the black, whatever the term is, by like 50% of your total budget. Where does that like go? Because does it just
So in policy, half of that is allocated to our like investments accounts, which we will be putting back into this year because we did. Oh, that was the other thing I forgot to mention is the $50,000 that we did liquidate in stocks this year was not included in this because it wasn't being, sorry, I meant to put that on a slide and I forgot. So that is being allocated to fix the service to Juprom, so I didn't count it as like ED team, like revenue, but that is, yeah. But sorry, to answer your question, half of that will be allocated to go back into our investments, and the other half is allocated as revenue for like next year's budget.
follow up?
Yeah.
So I see the big number as a DSC president of unspent money. And I just want to pitch the option for next year's team to consider. There's a lot of DSCs that are trying to run banquets at pretty big deficits, that are big events for lots of people. So even just any sort of investment from the Engineering Society in those events with that extra money would go a long way for those clubs that do a lot for the student experience. Just because I see that big number and
Yeah.
how, like, my club this year, like, I inherited 5K of debt. Like, it's been kind of rough crunching the numbers to work that out. But some support for those clubs in the future would be great, given that the money is there. So
Yeah,
I just wanted to pitch
well,
that to the crowd.
Look, I totally see that. I think to go off Jack's point, like if you go back to look at our operational budget that we presented at the start of the year, we were projected to be in the green by like $2,000. And I remember everyone in this room being upset that we were only projecting a $2,000 surplus. And like that's to say that like we were projecting to make like very little money. So like that's why it becomes so like challenging to budget, because if we don't know that we're gonna end up with a $100,000 surplus until like we are here at this point. Also, it won't be that bad because we do still have a whole bunch of appreciation to go.
Yeah, just as a sort of add on to what Avery said, like our fiscal year is September to September, and we're in late March, so we still have like 5 months of expenditures. That includes like all of the summer expenditures, all of the remaining EE team stuff, any invoice that hasn't been paid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, we have to have enough liquid cash basically to pay for the entirety of O Week before all of the O Week revenue rolling in August when people start buying tickets, which is like 200 grand basically that we have to have sitting in the bank. So we do have to stay pretty liquid, which means that we can't be budgeting a deficit and then banking on the fact that we will come in under budget and putting us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like I understand the whole summer thing.
Yeah.
Or direct expenses or whatever. I'm just putting it out there that that's something to consider.
Yeah.
With that money that is there, that's not spent on.
So I just wanted to clarify, like the current surplus is a little bit misleading as to what we look like at the end of the year.
Further questions? Okay.
Thank you very much. All right. Amazing. The next presentation that we have is the external relations presentation.
Alrighty. Hello everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ethan. I am the current Director of External Relations for NCSOG. So yeah, this is kind of what I'm going to be going over. I'm going to be talking about the external relations. I know we just had like a little conversation about it. What's ESCO? What's CFPS? You're going to find out. So we're going to do a quick intro, and then we're going to talk about, well, the intro is going to cover like the background of these organizations, our involvement in them. Then we're going to talk about the conferences we attended this year, and then some of the big takeaways and my thoughts about it. And then we're briefly going to talk about the External Communications Committee at the end. I'll talk more about it when we get to it. So yeah, the intro. What is ESCO and CFPS? So when we're saying ESCO, we're talking about the Engineering Student Society Council of Ontario, and when I say CFPS, we're talking about the Canadian Federation of Engineering Students. The analogy I like to give for these organizations is here at Queen's, we're Queen's NCSOG. In Ontario, there's other engineering schools that have their own engineering societies, and the collection of them is ESCO. The majority of engineering undergraduate societies are part of ESCO in Ontario, and that is the Ontario Region Society. And then when you get to the CFES, there's 4 regions that we look at in Canada when we talk about this stuff. There's the West, there's Ontario, Quebec, and the East. So ESCO is one of those regions, and those 4 regions together make up the CFES, so that's all of Canada. So some things to get out of the way. The ESCO and CFES fee together are $1.15. I'm sorry, yeah, $1.15 per student. So that means that all around 3,500 of our students are paying $1.15 to be a part of these organizations. So we're paying some money. Now what's provided? The main 4 things that I'll talk about further eventually or later in the presentation is the leadership and involvement opportunities, the conferences and competitions, advocacy, and then the relationships. So this is a list of the conferences and competitions that are provided and hosted by the ESCO and CFES. I'm not going to dive too deeply into all of them. You can reference them, and I'll dive deeply into the ones that we attended this year. And yeah, what I will mention is I'm not going to be talking about the president's meeting for ESCO and the CFES. I'll briefly describe what it is. It's basically a meeting where presidents and people in my role, I'll probably refer to it as VPX, Vice President External, because that's what they're called in other schools. They meet up and they form those relationships, they talk about stuff, they share things at the start of the year. That's what President's Meeting is. I already talked about it at a previous council. A little fact that just happened at a conference this year is the CFES President's Meeting is now called the Summit for Development of Engineering Societies, so you won't hear it be called PM anymore. But yeah, I'll talk about the conferences after I mention something else. So, why do we attend these conferences and competitions? I like to break it into 3 main areas of why we're attending these competitions and conferences. First, there's the plenary and general assembly. If those terms make no sense to you, think of it as like council, what we're doing right here at Queen's, but at the provincial and the national level. So what that means is I go to these conferences on behalf of all the students here and vote, just like we vote on things at council, but for like provincial and national matters and a lot of logistical things within these organizations and the direction and decisions they're making. So yeah, they go in and give that input and advocate for the best interest of Smith Engineering students on those decisions and the direction they're going. Next, there's a student development. So this is probably one of the most important areas of why we're attending these things, and it's the opportunity to learn from industry professionals and leaders by attending these conferences, through the sessions, through all the conversations, through the fire chats that the delegates get to attend. And also the opportunity to develop soft and hard skills and a good network across Canada. Like the conferences we're attending, there's a lot of sessions going over specific soft and hard skills to how to improve. We send students to competitions like OEC and CEC, where they are put through rigorous tests to test and develop those hard skills and showcase their talents. And the final and third area is the relationships and knowledge. This is probably the most important area that I've kind of noticed in my involvements, and that is because you're forming long-lasting relationships with so many like-minded students across Canada. When you go to these conferences, if you're at a CFES conference, there's around 50 plus schools, so that's 50 different schools of around 300, 200 students from across Canada that you get to talk to, you get to bounce ideas off of, you get to become friends with. One of the people from Windsor is like one of my close friends now. He actually came for St. Patty's because we become that close of friends. And a lot of the delegates I've talked to have long-standing friends from the relationships that they formed at these conferences. So yeah, the relationships are a huge part. It's okay. So yeah, what is our position? It's okay, go on. What is our position in these organizations? So from this lovely image of Jack and little Jack here, Queen's NSOC generally takes the big brother, big sister role of in these organizations. What that means is, as an engineering society, we're a lot more developed and well-rounded than a lot of the other societies. You'd be surprised, and you should be thankful, because we have a lot of control over a lot of things like O-Week and all the services. Like most NSOCs don't even have one service. We have plenty, right? So we're often in the giving role rather than receiving when it comes to information and resources and like support. So that's just one thing to think about, and I'll talk about it further. So yeah, let's dive right into the CFES and ESCO conferences that we attended this year. So first, this first conference that we attended besides the President's meeting is the first year integration conference. So as it's stated in the name, the main focus of this conference is to integrate first years in the engineering community and in the external community. So this year is hosted in Toronto by UFC. And by the way, I'm gonna preface, I give a rating for most of these conferences. It's on a scale of 5. I don't really think it's that bad. So it's 2.5, so like a 5 out of 10. And I'll give a little bit of background and history of why it got the rating it did. This conference really struggled with getting funding and sponsors, so they had to increase the fee, and there was a lot of chaos, a lot of dispute about all that. And by the time the conference came around, the OC was very fed up, and you could tell by the way they presented the conference, they presented themselves, that they just wanted to get it over with. And for me and a lot of other people that attended the conference, that really negatively affects our experience. So moving to the takeaways, one of the biggest things that we can kind of take back and understand for hosting our internal conferences, and I'll talk about this more eventually, but we're actually hosting this exact conference at Queen's in 2025 next November. So this is a big thing, and it's a presentation of the OC and the people running the conference itself. If the people who are running the conference don't want to be there, why would anyone traveling from across Ontario want to be there? So it's something to really think about. And moving on from that, 2 of the delegates that were taken from Queen's this year were the co-chairs for this conference that we're hosting, this year, in 2025. And that was a choice that was made because if you are able to attend the conference that you're about to host, you're going to be taking away all of the things that you should do, and more so things for this conference that you shouldn't do to host a successful conference. And from talking with the co-chairs, Flamini and Jaden, about their experiences, they have a large list of things that they want to do differently and that they want to bring to make this conference even better and blow it out of the water when it comes to Queen's. And the final big thing here is this is just a general great introduction for first years about external opportunities and just opportunities in general. The first year delegate that we took this year, her name was Liz. She enjoyed the conference so much. She actually rated like a 5 out of 5. She really loved it. And now she became a director on the board of directors of the FYC 2025 conference, right? So she was able to go to this conference, see what the space is like, and get involved and bring back all that knowledge to our conference at Queen's. Next, we have 2 conferences hosted by the CFES, the Conference on Diversity in Engineering and the Conference on Sustainability in Engineering. So these are kind of 2 conferences. These conferences I actually don't attend. The reason being there's no plenary or GA or what we call council at these conferences, so there's no reason for me to go. It would be a much better use of our resources to send people that it's a lot more relevant information for. So this year, Conference on Diversity in Engineering, we sent, funny enough, our outgoing and incoming Director of Equity and Advocacy, Sasha and Khaled. So I'm going to let Sasha kind of dive into a little bit more about how she thought of the conference.
Yes, Sasha, Director of Equity and Advocacy. I did not expect to enjoy this conference as much as I did. I will say they did lack a little bit of structure in terms of planning. However, the sessions that were good were incredible, and the sessions that were bad were very bad, and I'll let Khaled speak on this as well. However, I will say that attending this conference was a bit, it really helped me get out of a little bit of a slump. That's when I was a bit like, I don't really know what to do with my portfolio kind of thing, and I was like feeling a little bit uninspired with changing things up, and it gave me a lot of insight as to how we can shape Utah, and it gave me a lot of perspective. I ultimately made great connections. It single-handedly inspired every single event that I planned for this year, and that's why we had the most new events planned in my portfolio ever, and I owe this entirely to this conference, so I would give it a solid 4 out of 5. Again, the sessions that were great were really great. Yeah, it was very insightful. There was a great Indigenous welcome that really resonated with both Khaled and I. I'll let him speak on that as well. Some really insightful sessions about AI ethics and very typical engineering concepts that seem mundane, but gave you a very unique perspective about equity and advocacy and how that's relevant to diversity in engineering.
Yeah, any major points you want to talk about, Khaled?
Yeah, Khaled Rajan, incoming Director of Equity and Advocacy. Amazing conference. I'd probably give it a 4.5 out of 5. The main thing bringing the conference down was there was a lot of very heavy subject matter, which was exhausting, especially when you would go for 4.5, 5 hours straight, just hearing amazing presentations, trying
guys. Yeah, so for CSE, there's none of the delegates that attended are here, but I've debriefed both of them, and I'll give a little quick brief debrief of what they thought of the conference. Basically, CSE, Conference on Sustainable Engineering, they felt like it was a conference on sustainability, but not a conference on sustainability and engineering. So what that means is it was tackling the problem, or it was addressing the problems and like what was causing them, but it didn't really tackle the solutions and what us as engineers can do to solve and implement solutions. So like that was the general overview. They did agree that the sessions were kind of hit or miss. So there's some great sessions, but there's also some sessions that into one ear or out the other. And the general kind of consensus with a lot of these conferences is the relationships and the conversations outside of the sessions were a lot more valuable than some of the sessions themselves. So overall, they both rated it around like a 3. So this was probably one of the lower conferences. Next, this is the Canadian Engineering Leadership Conference. This is the CFBS, the big conference they run in winter break. It's a 7-day long conference, so it's a lot of time. But I went in my first year, and it's always been one of my favorite ones because you're really involved, right? You're really in there for 7 days, so you better be involved. So this year is hosted in the University of New Brunswick, and yeah, I rated it a 3.5. I had a unique perspective this year because I went last year as a regular delegate as a first year, and then this year came back as Director of External Relations, and I got to see both sides of the conference. When I'm going as Director of External Relations, I'm in a governance stream, so I'm doing only governance things. And since this is like their annual big conference, that means 3 days straight of 6-hour-long council meetings. So if you think this is bad, imagine AGM 3 times over, 3 days in a row. So yeah, a lot of that. There was elections as well. So that was a big, long process, and just a lot of internal logistics things about changing the inner workings of these organizations to make them run better and to improve our benefit in the future, right? And then yeah, another note I have here is this is proven to be the best way to spark a passion for external involvement. And what I mean by proven is, fun fact, the last 5 Director of External Relations were Calc delegates. So I was a delegate last year, Simon was a delegate, Kalena, Aiden, and now Gabby. Gabby was one of the delegates I chose. She loved the conference. I talked to her, she said this was a big reason why she wanted to do it, and now she has that knowledge, that background of the external scene to carry through for the next year. So yeah, this is it. Like, there's a lot of pressure on you now, Gabby, because you got to choose a good delegate. There's a good chance that they are the next Director of External Relations. But with that said, I wanted to hand it over to Gabby to give kind of like a delegate perspective of what she thought of this conference.
Yeah, hello, Gabby Steiner, incoming Director of External Relations. It was definitely an awesome experience. I kind of never heard of conferences until I decided to apply to go to this one, and I actually had no idea what to expect. I had no idea ESCO and CFBS existed, so when I got there, it was like everyone kept saying all these abbreviations, and I really had no idea what was going on. But it was probably one of the most welcoming environments I've ever really experienced being in. Every single person I talked to, even if it not even just like the Queens people that were there, but everyone else from other schools was just people who were really inspired to be around. Everyone was so involved in their own EdStock and in their own engineering communities. So just talking to everyone was kind of like a unique experience to learn about other schools and the kinds of things that they do. And there was also just really, really helpful and inspiring sessions that they held. Something I really enjoyed was that there was 3 different streams you could kind of pick from to go. Like, there's always 3 different sessions happening at once. And you could kind of pick which one you wanted to go to, and that to me was kind of a big reason why I really enjoyed it. You could kind of take time for yourself and decide what you wanted to do with your day according to the kinds of things that interested you. So I think it was just, I would say for the amount of students that were there and the amount of things that they had to organize in a day, it was definitely a lot more well organized than they might even give themselves credit for. I think it ran pretty smoothly, and I really don't have anything bad to say. I mean, by the end I was pretty exhausted and it was really hard to get up, but overall I would say it was a pretty awesome conference to get to attend.
Yeah, thank you, Gabby. Yeah, so I mean, this is proof. Any of you guys want to attend the conference, you want to spark something, look at your first years, definitely keep applying. Definitely keep being involved, because you can have an experience like this and it can really change your perspective on a lot of things. Yeah, so yeah, this is wrapping it up with the final conference that I attended this year. This is the ESCO's equivalent to KELP, their big annual meeting where they do all the elections, they do their big annual GA, and it's called the Conference on Advocacy and Leadership in Engineering, and the host was TMU this year. So I rated this a 4.0. This was my highest rated conference of the year, and the big reason for this was by this point in the year, all these lovely people you can see here, these are the people in my position, the equivalents at their schools. You really become like good friends with these people. You're spending so much time with them talking, and I felt like the conversations were so fluid. There's a lot of good shared information at this conference, a lot of good takeaways. Off the top of my head, like one thing that we talked about that like I would have never even thought about talking about, but it was like the Trump tariffs. I'm sure you guys have heard about it. We're talking about like how that's going to affect our students and how that can affect potential co-ops in the States, right? I even have a friend who is personally trying to get a visa right now, and the tariffs are really affecting it. So looking at those issues, like I would have never thought of that. I don't know if anyone here has, maybe they have, but looking at those issues, talking about them, coming up with solutions, and then talking to people here, like that's a big part of these conferences. Yeah, besides that, more just like more GA elections. That was what most of my time was spent in, besides the conversations. But Liz, the first year that went to FYC, was also at this conference, and she additionally loved this conference, and now has even more experience to bring back for FYC and make it an awesome conference. So yeah, that being said, that's all the conferences. So now let's go into like a debrief and talk about some takeaways about ESCO and CPS. So from this image, this is my overall opinion that ESCO is greater than the CFES. And why is that? From my experience, the conference quality of the ESCO conferences have just been a lot better than CFES. The ESCO ones are at a much higher scale, and the organizing committees are like usually kind of the same size, so it's a lot more burdened and like this less resources. So the organization, everything, it can take a toll, definitely when the scale increases. So that's something I've noticed. Delegates have also noticed more takeaways throughout the year is the community building and regional division of ESCO conferences versus CFES conferences. There's just how we have an NSTOC bubble here, there's regional bubbles when you go to CFES conferences. You would think people get to go out to a conference with a bunch of people across Canada, they're gonna spend as much time as possible with people as far away and get these perspectives. It's kind of funny and like counterproductive how much time people spend with the people in their own regions, and it can feel impossible to break in sometimes. So yeah, it's hard to justify the benefits of the diverse perspectives of the CFES when, from the experience at the conference, I would go to a conference and try to break into a bubble of other regions, and no disrespect to my French-speaking people, like I speak French, and I would go talk French and then get like some dirty looks and walk, like no disrespect to the Quebecois region, but there's definitely a barrier, and it can be broken with certain people, but people just have like an unconscious, I'm gonna stick with people that I know. It's kind of human nature, right? You wanna stick with what you're comfortable with. So it's hard to get those benefits of the diverse perspectives when there is that kind of culture at these conferences. And I'm not saying that that's all it is. There are definitely people that want to talk from other regions, but it's just that selective bunch. Oh wait, I saw.
Sorry.
No worries. But it's not, CFS isn't awful. I don't think it's an awful organization. It does hold a lot more student power compared to ESCO. It is in contact, both ESCO and CFS are in contact with notable engineering bodies like Engineers Canada and other organizations like that. But the CFES does hold a lot more power, and they do post official stances on certain things, like the Iron Ring ceremony, that these organizations look at the CFES for the general opinion of the student undergraduate population or engineering population of Canada, right? So we do want to say it and what's being said about everything in Canada. So that's why like it is important, but overall I do still think ESCO is a lot better than CFES. So we just talked a lot about these conferences. I gave you some like notable things, but let's break it down. What's the value for our students and what's the value for our school? The main values for our students is the personal and professional development. You go to one of these conferences, I'll talk about my experience from first year going to KELP. It's my first conference. I went in, like, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was just starting first year. and I went in and I had the mindset, okay, I'm gonna talk to as many people as possible, I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna see where it takes me, right? And I left that conference, like this sounds so cliche, but I low-key left there a different person. Like there's a lot of different perspectives that you can gain from talking with a lot of like-minded people, and we're lucky enough to be a part of this group of like-minded people at Queen's, but imagine all the best people here plucked out and put in a room in some random spot where you're forced to talk and network, right? It's a great way to personally develop your communication, your speaking, just your knowledge in general. And all of the delegates that I've talked to this year have agreed that they've developed professionally and personally from these conferences. And continuing on that, the network that you develop is huge, right? Network, I mean, looking at Max here, network can be everything sometimes, right? So when you are able to form actual connections with people, because you're kind of forced to in some of these scenarios, and then form these connections and be able to rely on them later on in life, like who knows who that person you met is what they're gonna be doing in 5 years, it can be really beneficial. So allowing that opportunity for our students to form those networks is pretty huge. And then finally, OEC and CEC, those stand for the Ontario Engineering Competition and the Canadian Engineering Competition. These are two competitions. Well, first I'll say, hopefully most of you guys know what QEC is. It's the Queen's Engineering Competition. It's an engineering competition with, I believe, 8 categories or 9 categories that we host here. And basically how it works is the first place teams at Queen's move on to the Ontario level, and then the first and second place teams there move on to the Canadian level. Luckily this year, well not luckily, it was well deserved, but we performed really well this year, like best we have in any records that we have. And we had 10 people move on from OEC to CEC, so 3 separate teams, and our junior design team actually won CEC this year. So like they are the best in Canada, and which is kind of incredible. Last year we didn't even qualify for CEC, so it's a huge accomplishment, right? And the reason I put these here is because, actually, yeah, I'll talk about it on the further slide, but OEC and CEC is the main service that our students get exposed to. The majority of our students, like we're only really taking 1 or 2 delegates to these other conferences. We send 24 people to OEC. That already doubles the amount of people that we're sending to these other conferences. So that's like the big area where our students are getting value from these organizations. And if we're not a part of them, we don't have that opportunity to let our QEC winners move on and keep showcasing their skills. So yeah, what's the value for our school? So forming connections and relationships with other schools to lean on for help. I put this here because it has become useful. It has been useful, but it hasn't been a big reason why this is like a big value reason for being in these organizations. Like I mentioned before, we're a lot more developed. There's not a lot of help. Obviously, we're not perfect. We can keep growing, but there's not a lot that other societies can really do for us at this current moment. But yeah, continuing from there, having a say in provincial and national voice with undergraduate engineering students. I talked about this before. If we're not part of these organizations, we don't really have a say in what they're saying and how they're portraying our students as this Ontario or national body. And then maintaining and strengthening our reputation. The big thing at these conferences, a lot of other basically almost all the other students at other schools don't interact with Queen's students. So they don't interact with other students from other schools. And this is at these conferences is their only real opportunity to interact with students, like being me and other delegates. And they take that back and they talk about their friends like, oh, it's either these Queen's delegates were awesome, I made cool friends, I love Queen's, like their culture seems really cool, or oh, these people suck, or like I don't even know these people. So if we're able to keep going and increasing our reputation, that's something that inherently just brings good things for our school in the long run. But yeah, continuing. Yeah, now that we talked about some of the values, definitely can't ignore the downsides. So I mentioned this before, but currently around 35 out of the 350 or 3,500 members of our engineering society get to participate in ESCO CFS services. 24 of those being OEC and C, or OEC and potentially CSC, and that's around 1% of our student body. I'm sure most of you have seen the NSTOC budget, but it is, the external budget is pretty big, and conferences can be expensive, and we are spending a lot of money for things that don't necessarily benefit as much of the student body as possible. I'm not saying that I don't think these opportunities are important, but it is a lot of money to justify for sending students to something that affects so little percentage of our student body. And like I mentioned previous times, we don't receive the same benefits as other smaller schools because they don't have as much as we do, right? Moving on. So, what is my final recommendation after all these experiences? As things stand, ESCO is more valuable for our students than the CFES. I mentioned this before in the previous slide, but yeah, like if we are going to look at potentially changing a membership to one of these organizations, I would recommend analyzing our membership with the CFES over ESCO. I don't recommend we do both at a time. I would definitely suggest we look at the CFES membership for the 2026-2027 year, because we're already locked in for next year. We can't change that. So what I'm saying is your year, like the incoming people, you guys, especially you, Gabby, but all of you guys will be probably spending some time, if you choose to, analyzing our membership and potentially leaving the CFES, because if it's not providing so much benefit for our students and we're spending all this money to attend their competitions and conferences, then why waste the money, right? We can reallocate it somewhere else. And one thing I put in here is potentially keeping access to CEC. If this was an option so this has happened in the past with UBC, where they left the CFES, but they still had access to CEC at like a reduced fee. But there was some issue where it didn't work out and they were still beef, so they dropped it. And now, like no one's really doing it anymore. But I think it would be really useful to look into trying to keep the membership, but just for CEC, because that's where a lot of our main value is. Sending the students to CEC and having that opportunity for our students to showcase their skills at a national level. And final thing I have here is get money from the faculty for competitions. The dean likes that we're involved in these organizations like ESCO and CFES because it's better credit for Queens. And you look at the dean, we sent people to CEC, he wanted like an interview, he did a LinkedIn post, they had like an article because it's our students doing well and he wants to showcase that. He wants people to see that Queens students are successful and that they're cool at these conferences because more people come to Queens and more money for the faculty, and that's what he wants, right? So something that we did this year is we got money from the faculty to send people to CEC because they want to support our students. So I think it's definitely something to look into for future years. It's trying to get some money from the faculty if they want us to be a part of these organizations and have our students bring good credit for Queens. Pitch in some money, like give us some money. Like we're not running on much here. So yeah, those are my final recommendations. So, no worries. Okay, yeah. Actually, yeah, stand aside for a sec. So I want to give some history of what this committee is and what it was in the past and where it's headed now. So the External Communications Committee is, in the past, it was created to analyze our memberships within the CFES and ESCO. This is because in the past we've left and rejoined CFES and ESCO many times. So we wanted the committee to kind of just be there to help in that decision making and looking in at all the details of if we're going to stay, if we're going to leave, what we're going to do. And that's what it was in the past. So last year, I was a first year in council and I was elected to become a member of ex-ComCom. And we were already a part of ESCO and CFES and we were happy with things at the time, so we didn't need to do that. So instead, we were doing kind of external outreach to other schools, but I'm gonna be fully honest in saying that we didn't do much and we didn't really accomplish much, and what we were doing wasn't overly necessary because we already had delegates who were able to contact people in person at these conferences doing what we were doing. We're sending like cold emails to people about random things, basically. So I saw this last year, and this year I was trying to think, what is ex-ComCom going to be? Is it going to stay around? Is it going to do anything? So I was thinking, how can we better reallocate our resources and make it a committee that does something useful? So if you move on to the next slide, this is the structure that I've kind of been running with this year and testing out this year. The committee is usually around 6 people, 3 of them lovely first years over there. And this is how I kind of divide it up. Instead of doing just external outreach, which is what we did basically all last year, we have 2 people on that who are still going to be reaching out to people from other schools to get that information. But instead of just like willy-nilly just asking random questions, like we came up with random questions. I didn't know anything, I was a first year. That's usually the case. Most of the committee is usually first years. What we did this year, or what we're trying to do this year, is getting the information and questions we want to ask from the people at council, from the directors, from the design team captains. So I had the officers this year make a survey that we spread out. Didn't receive a lot of answers, but I personally pressed a few of you guys in here to get some answers, so there should be answers in now. And then take those questions, make a questionnaire, and then ask the relevant people at other schools to bring back useful information that we can actually apply to our portfolios instead of just putting it in a presentation, glazing over it, and then it doesn't go anywhere, right? So we wanted to target and to do actual like outreach on things that we want to know. And then the rest of the committee is now broken up into community outreach officers. So I'm gonna be honest and say a lot of the potential of the committee wasn't used this year. A lot of it was brainstorming on what we wanted to actually do, and a lot of it was tentative on relationships that I was trying to form within the community of Kingston that ended up, like, they're still formed, but they didn't go where we wanted them. So the community outreach officers didn't get to do much this year, but we do have a plan laid out for what they're gonna be doing in future years, and that looks like working with the Externals FIPCO to do more outreach within schools, because I don't know if some of you guys were around last year, we had a branch of Engineers of Tomorrow ratified, and they were supposed to take over that. That used to be in the Externals portfolio, they were supposed to take it over. I've had so many meetings with Avery, they're kind of still setting up, they just got ratified last year, they don't really have a lot of engagement, so they're still setting up. So we're just gonna kind of try to work in parallel with them until they are fully set up, and then we let them take it over eventually. And then the rest are kind of just more internal things, like the social media officer, which would be in charge of making engaging social media posts, spreading the awareness of external topics, like what's ESCO, what's CFPS, and stuff like that. And then the internal awareness officer, which shares information about ESCO and CFPS and external opportunities to our students, so like doing lecture talks, sharing group chats with friends, and attending hiring fairs. So yeah, that's like the general structure that I would love to see. Like you can obviously do whatever you want, but like, yeah, I think this is a good structure to try to follow for next year. And I'll definitely be there to help you out. But yeah, that's it. Please ask some questions if you have any, or if you have any feedback, I'd love to hear it too.
I have two thoughts and a question.
Yeah.
This question here, but still. I also want to do this as myself and not the ERB chair. It's very important that this is Connor Rosie talking. First thing, point of information, that article you mentioned from the dean, very important for council to note, does not include the name of any of the delegates, including the ones that won CEC.
No, yeah.
Just something to note. Additionally, the question I had, during the question presentation, I decided to review member schools of ESCO and CFPS, just from something that popped up in my head from the winners of OEC, specifically in the programming category, who then went to CFPS as well, being sent out of college. And when I went to the CFPS website, I found that the list of member schools only actually gave member organizations at the provincial level. So my understanding is it is two separate fees, but as it is presented on the CFPS website, it seems to be that any ESCO school is listed under their website. And I'm hoping that's not the case, but that's the question I have for you.
That's not the case. Yeah, there's a few ESCO schools like Ottawa University or University of Ottawa that weren't members of CFPS for a while. They just came back. They're not paying fees if they're not members, but yeah, they just have that listed. I don't know, probably for sponsors, probably for like.
So University of Ottawa.
They're now members of the CFPS again, but like
okay.
they weren't.
Okay. Because that was a major question I had, was specifically on the topic of CEC and the benefit to the students. Yeah. And that's where my last point comes in for council discussion, is I think a lot of the things you were saying about the region cliquiness, if you will, at the CFPS conferences, were kind of amplified to an insane degree at CEC this past weekend, just by the nature of it being a competition by its very nature. And it meant that there was not a lot of cross-delegate interaction at any time. It was a little bit different for debate, but talking to the other delegates in programming and in junior design, they kind of worked on all their stuff on Saturday and didn't really get the chance or the opportunity to interact in any meaningful way with other schools. So it's worth noting that CEC has its own merits, primarily for allowing Queen's teams to continue competing, is I think what I'm getting at. Yeah. And it kind of loses any of the other merits of the other conferences.
Absolutely, yeah. Like OEC and CEC, like CEC in general, you're not gonna, like, inherently just because it's a competition, like you mentioned, you're not gonna get those same benefits. But if we want, like the argument for keeping it is we want to allow our students the opportunity to showcase their skills and get interior design won, right? That's an incredible accomplishment. If we weren't part of CPS, we couldn't do that. So that's like the argument for staying.
I'm just going to interrupt for a minute. A reminder that we are still in council and that I please ask you to not talk to your neighbors. I hear a lot of chatter and this is an important discussion that we're having. Please keep order. Thank you.
What's the other question? Yeah.
Ben Demarisi, President. We had some people from Queens who were like members of the boards of these organizations. Kalina Simon Park, I might be missing somebody. Jack, I know is next year. I promise I forget.
No.
And so I wanted to ask, do you think that like Queens benefited from having our own members on those committees? Like I know that we funded them to go to these conferences as like representatives from Queens. Like, do we see benefits from that, from like kind of how CFPS and ESCO run because we have our own people there? Did you see anything like that? Or?
Yeah. So this is one thing. So I'll use Simon as an example. Simon is our Ontario ambassador. What that means is he's kind of like the people in my role at the other schools. He's like our supervisor. Like he like helps us out with everything at all these conferences. And every one of the representatives from other schools knows him as that kind, supporting guy who helps everyone get through things. And they also know that he's directly from Queens. If you look at CFPS, everyone looking at who the CFPS president is, like Kalina and Simon, they're both openly and proudly like admitting that they're from Queens, because why wouldn't you, right? A lot of people, and the general like opinion that I've had from people just talking like, oh, you're from Queens, like you guys are cool. Like that is us having those people in those positions. I would say definitely influences that. And yeah, like there are other things like in the background where it's benefiting them as a students. But generally in the school, I would say our reputation is almost directly relevant to them in those positions.
This is kind of just a suggestion for both of you if you go with the new structure for XCOMCom. But for the position that's like reaching out to people in NSOC and asking if they have any questions that they want researched, forgetting which one it's called. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the external outreach officer. I have found that having like kind of like a baseline research given to people before asking if they have questions can be helpful. So like most people, particularly in this area, just don't know what they don't know. So it could be useful to have like a standing batch of knowledge that's given to people and be like, okay, read this, here's how other schools do it, do you have any follow-up questions? So like I didn't think of that when I had been dealing with this exact issue and I was getting no responses from anybody because no one had any questions, but then once they heard about things that they suddenly had them. So I just wanted to put that up and that could be useful for efficiency. So.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a useful thing. The way we actually have it structured this year is together, like as a committee, we brainstormed like questions, like asking for problems. So when we reached out to the people, like the directors, we reached out for problems that they had, and then the idea is we come together, discuss those problems, and then develop questions to ask based off those problems. So I think like both approaches probably work. I think that would definitely be something we could do. Alright. Thank you.
That
guys.
is the end of external relations. Thank you very much. All right, Chloe's trying to plug her computer in. I did it. Amazing. We are now going to move to our final presentation of the night. Amazing. It's going to be the summer budget draft plan from our incoming exec. We do have a motion about this presentation, so just as a reminder to keep your presentations about the presentation. Your questions about the presentation. Great, good stuff. Last presentation, guys. It's gonna be great. Okay, I'm gonna do one. I'm kidding. Okay. All right.
executive, strat plan here, budget in the motions. You have strat plan questions here, budget questions in the motion.
Also, apologies if you tried to see the written part of our strat plan. We got that part of the way, but the budget was on time. But all this, we were finishing up final details, so we'll present it now. So the overview of what we're going to go through in this presentation is like accountability, routine duties, annual duties, new projects that our executive are doing, and then also director projects that we'll be supporting throughout the summer. Accountability. So this consists mostly of daily tracking our working hours, especially a lot of the stuff we're laying out in this over the summer. We're going to actually track how much of our hours go into doing these things just for next year, helping with the timing of the new executive. Also, monthly video updates for my events that we go to or run, such as Ritual, Toronto Pride, as well as the President's meeting that we were talking about earlier, that is in July. And then written reports, which will have more in-depth details about what we did or any new discoveries or events over the summer.
Routine duties. So these are things that happen every year and have to happen every year, so they're like static responsibilities. So like Operation Modernizing Carrier Pigeon Method. This is just answering emails, making sure we're on time, answering them in a timely manner. That'll take approximately 1 hour per day. And then Operation Stuck in the Moment. This is broken down by hour. This is general routine meetings with directors, with each other, with Jay, affiliated groups, faculty, and other external bodies. And this is a pretty table that we totally didn't copy from last year's exec. And annual duties, again, that have to happen annually. Operation, this is just another way to say strategic planning. That's creating a strat plan and operating budget for the academic year, as well as studying bylaw and policy so that we know what's going on in NSHOP, and general administrative and organizational preparation for the academic year.
Operation Social Butterfly, this is mostly communicating with CFPS, ESCO, all those external bodies. This will also include attending the ESCO conference, which will be in Gabby during the summer.
And then Operation Finally Leaving the ILC. This is where we attend SOAR here at Queen's, as well as Toronto Pride and other relevant events within the Queen's community. We're also planning to visit both Waterloo and McMaster during our Pride Parade trip, so we're adding an extra day to kind of get more insight into these two particular schools and SOCs to see how we can better improve our own. Operation Being a Half Decent Role Model. So this is all the leadership training that we do over the summer, such as suicide prevention, responding to disclosures, first aid, food safety, and more. And also coordinating any other training to be done for members of FC and other people who might need them. And then
Operation Reliving Being Privy Coordinator. Yes, this is typed by myself. This will consist mostly just the general organization of our director privy and elite involvement. We are hoping to create a little bit of a stronger foundation, no bias, because I was a privy coordinator of really fun socials and trainings that are kind of revamping, kind of progressed on throughout the years. I'm a privy, by the way. And hopefully we can kind of bring that into the director team privy.
and then Operation Why You Guys Are Dinosaurs. Thank you, Ian. So this happens every year also, just painting or repainting the existing year crests so that they look fresh and clean for next year.
Okay, so Operation Clean Talk has been preparing me for this. So we're just going to clean up the spaces in Clark Hall, in the ILC, and just any other office spaces that we have. Operation Babysitting, so Science Quest, as you all know, happens in the ILC during the summer, and we have to be around to make sure we can fill in case any of the air managers have to take a sick day, or even any of their camp leaders need to. And then Operation Bring Back Blurbo. As you may know, there was some Blurbo recently. So we just run Summer Ritual for the first 6 weeks of the summer, from 4:30 to 7:30. So if you're working in Kingston, you want to come after work. That'll be for the first 6 Fridays of the summer, just to get rid of our current Clark inventory. Oh yes, and then Operation Please Spend More Money Before You Leave. So convocation happens in June. We try to sell some more of CO's inventory. We sell a lot of tradition teas during that time, the last whatever year is graduating. And then, the next one's online.
Operation New Raise Gap. So this is communicating with all of our EDI groups and affiliated groups, such as Mentor Bears, NESB, Vision Wise, QY, etc. And this also includes promoting on our Instagram Asian Heritage Month, Pride Month, and Indigenous Histories Month with engineering spotlight on our social media. And then Operation Entry, we made it messy, not us. This is just a maintenance visit to our off-campus storage facilities, making sure that they are relatively organized and aren't like terribly messy.
And then Operation Socializing with Other People. This is mostly building connections with other faculties, like their leadership, AMS, local community, anyone that would need to be in communication over the summer. That would be nice to kind of have that bridge made before the school year starts, just so it's a little bit less awkward and cold calling them during the year if there's an issue going on that we need to know. Operation Jealous, that this isn't my portfolio, I just read this. This is the corporate initiative section. This is OE. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with OE. This consists a lot of reviewing the primer, slippery feet, seeing how that literally is going to feel on my skin, the ED team involvement, other general assistance, mostly with like OC and any issues with the city, if I need to step in, AMS or any of that stuff, I'll be there to support them. For the next corporate initiative, Operation First Year 74, but like $50,000 bigger. This is just any preliminary summer task force, side formal. Usually it's a little more chill in summer, but if anything big comes up or they tell us like, hey, there's some issues with how they can be running grant, whatever, yada yada, I will be helping out with that. I see you guys.
And this is a new project. So this is Operation FYI, you are part of NSHLOC. So this is this has been done in the past. It's kind of fallen through the cracks in the last few years. So reviving and drafting a contract for affiliated groups that kind of outlines all of NSHLOC's expectations, particularly with regards to hiring policy, and then also outlining the appropriate consequences for breaching of said policy.
Operation Barbie's Dream House. So on top of cleaning up the space in Clark, we also would like to optimize the space a little more. Ideally, just for safety as far as Clark is concerned, with all the kegs in the way, and then higher volumes would be nice. And then Operation Babe, are you okay? You've barely touched your full potential. So I just want to, like Lily and Yaya have brought up, I'd like to assess the current situation that we have with Ad Board. I think it could be a super helpful and effective board, but I think it needs some change to achieve that. So looking into what these changes might look like over the summer, so that in the fall I can come here and pitch it to you.
Operation Forcing Bookkeepers to Touch Grass. Over the course of the summer, we're going to look at finding a way to change the way we kind of interact with our bookkeepers. We're going to start a little pilot project to try to get the bookkeepers to come to campus and interact directly with us as exec as well as our collective services. It'll probably take some trial and error. Most of the summer will just consist of like drafting it and then also pitching it to the bookkeepers because we're not sure they're going to want to deal with us. That should be a fun one. Operation Choo Choo. Get it? Like a train. No, I'm not. We're going to evaluate the delivery of current training modules as exec and also with the directors that have training modules that exist already. And proposing strategies to make them a little bit more effective and some changing systems in that regard as well.
And then Operation Tell Me About Yourself and why you would be a good fit for this position. So we're going to look into revamping interviews and so that they resemble like real job interviews, but that they also follow some sort of formality so that it's easy for decisions to be justified and they're not just like willy-nilly, I made this decision because I wanted to. Yeah.
My initiatives. So Operation Bedtime Story for a Sociopath. This mostly consists of the many pages of documentation that I need to read up on that fund, which by the end of the summer, hopefully I'm a professional in every single aspect of everything ever, any other press has ever written in history ever. So yeah, a lot of reading documentation. Second one, Operation the $100 million question. Last week I got to meet with the liaisons. They're going to be hiring new ones, and then also with Kevin Mumford being added, there's a lot of details to work out. So we're going to see how we can like fit our way into helping students do that for any Smith initiative, and also communicating what happens with the initiatives, what they are, and then just having a little bit more of a constructive way of getting feedback on that. Operation leveling out the playing fields. Hopefully you didn't see the cringy reel of Bill talking about this, but I'd love to get this set up sometime during the fall, especially with like the first year's planning stuff. Hopefully with the event website, like how I remember when I was in first year, having a resource where you can look at how we're headed to structure, so you can go and plan the positions that you want. And then the next one, Operation Integrate First Years that have integration. As we talked about earlier, this is the first year integration conference, which will be hosted this fall, and I'll just be helping these the chairs, doer, and director of public conferences with any issues that may come up over the summer leading up to us hosting.
Operation EndShock Book Club. So this is basically just reviewing all the transcript material of the directors and year executives and things like that to understand all of their roles. And with Operation, at one point, I wanted to go to law school, reviewing governing documents for any issues and recent changes, just going through proof grammar and spelling checks because the documents are really, really long and it's really easy to make stuff fall through the cracks. And then Operation Quip Sloppy Seconds. So ensuring year executives, especially in upper years, have a strong foundation for the role. We've seen a decrease in engagement for year executives because of Quip, so kind of looking into really defining what these roles are. Operation Knowing is half the battle. So this is reaching out to executive members and ED&IAS representatives from other faculty societies, as well as the AMS, to kind of brainstorm initiatives for the upcoming year. It's always better to have more perspectives on these kinds of things, so kind of communicating with them and seeing what they're doing in their faculty societies and how we can improve and implement them in our society. And then Operation Rebecca Please Help. This is working with the SVPR lead to develop initiatives and a strategic plan for the academic year. Obviously with the help of Rebecca, who's the SVPRS facilitator for the university. And then Operation Cost Planning as a comp student is ensuring that proper resources and information about EndShock affiliated groups as well as resources are updated on the website.
Okay, so I have like 12 initiatives, so bear with me. Operation Ops. I don't really get the joke. So this is mostly just learning my role and getting used to this position and kind of what I am to all the services. Operation Wrap It Before You Tap It. These are annual tasks that need to be closed from the previous fiscal year to the upcoming year. So just to make sure we're ready to go when it comes around. Operation Canada's Not For Sale, but Turbo is. This is, guys, let me finish. So this is just tariffs. Tariffs are actually going to play a pretty important role in the services and just like what they're going to mean for how we operate. So just being aware of that, just in case things go like incredibly south, or hopefully stay really north. Yeah. Operation EndLinks Unchained. Maybe just taking a look at how EndLinks performance has done this year and then in the previous years, and considering what can be done to help provide EndLinks to students at a lower cost. Operation The Blind Leading Himself, Microsoft Edition. For those of you who know me, you know I really suck at technology, and I'm just going to take a day this summer to get better at it. I did find out what Find My iPhone is this week. That was pretty cool. Operation Honey, Where Is My Capital Fund? Pretty much resetting the capital fund and getting it ready to be accessed by our services. Capital fund is meant to be used for really big and exciting purchases from our services, but it's been kind of a mess since our entire accounting system has also been a little bit disoriented. Operation Evil Stepsister Rises from the Dead. So, as you all know, Queen's Pub is also reopening. This is a competition for Clark, so they need to be aware of that and prepared. So working with, I guess I should have put person to Zach and Lindsay Stockton incoming Clark head manager. But we'll work together and prepare for that opening, and also negotiating with the AMS for StuCons, because that is key for Clark. Operation, making sure the chickens run around with their heads still on. So this is just working with my head managers, building a little bit of relationship with them, so I can trust them and they can trust me, and so I can help them, I guess, get any of their initiatives started. Operation Slowbooks, this is something shared between me and Ian, so just finishing up the current project from Avery and Lily, and making sure our books are balanced for the start of the year next year. Operation Getting Back to My Ex, this is another one with me and Ian. This is just reevaluating our portfolio since they split a couple years ago, and considering any changes or no changes. Operation Reference Error, see, I know a bit about Excel. So this is just ensuring the business manager training modules are up to date and ready for them by the time they need them later in the summer, to make sure they're ready to go for the fall. Operation Is Monogamy Good? We, for some reason, use 3 different POS systems between Enshaw, Clark, and Tea Room. I'd like to consider at least finding out if it's worth it to switch to one, and if it's not, that's fine. I just want to look into that this summer. There we go. One more, sorry. Okay. Operation Is Polygamy Good? Many of our services have one provider for a lot of their big products, like Goldenwords printers. So diversifying where we get some of our products from might be something our services could use. So I'm going to look into that. And then my final initiative, Operation Make Avengers Endgame Look Like a Tea Party. So just to identify some areas where the services can collaborate more to help each other out.
On some VPFA stuff, I really don't have too many. Lots of them are more direct initiatives. But Operation Treasurer, I hardly know her. Learning ins and outs of VPFA by primarily looking at last year. So last year there was 2 separate modules. There was like learn VPFA and then clean up the last year. I think those 2 things are probably going to happen at the same time, just trial by fire type of thing. Clean up the last year while learning about VPFA. Operation Episode 5, Return of the Jiddo. Updating and revamping financial processes on the front end and the back end. So that was like the big part that I ran on my platform, looking at automations for the back end and looking at improving the front end for the affiliated groups to interact with our financial systems. Physical finance maintenance, so Operation Cash Money, this happens every year, just cleaning up like safes, cash boxes, that kind of thing. Maybe looking at some improvements, but nothing too crazy. Operation Slowbooks, Jacob talked about this one already, but just finishing up the current project, tying up some loose ends to make sure our balances in QuickBooks reflect reality. Operation Getting Back to My Ex, same deal. Jacob and I are in the 3rd year of the offset-based split. What works, what doesn't? Do we change anything?
Director projects. Starting with Operation Bed Fund. I don't know where the school came from there. This is just supporting Paige doing her push to kind of better the marketing plan for the fund, especially at the beginning of the year, maybe looking into allowing the FC for orientation week, kind of plugging what the Bed Fund is and how it's improved kind of the student experience and what can be done with it. This will also include getting DOA to be a little bit more involved in communications between the DSCs. We're having some good meetings on between the DSCs and Edgesoft. It's a little bit more concrete because it feels very kind of moving around there and less than out in the 11 and just kind of revamping all that. And I'll just be supporting all of that, ironing out and kind of doing this and just kind of brainstorming. Operation A Bit Far Outreach. This is hopefully getting to new outreach team initiatives. This will depend on where we want to get hired, but hopefully a new event either to support the local community or an inter-faculty collaboration that can kind of be continued through the year. Mostly revolving around the outreach team and always helping to do good communications with any of the planning and logistically or just getting things going over the summer. Operation Supreme Organizer of Things. This is Michaela, Director of PD, and then this is just mostly, PD's in a pretty good spot right now for a lot of growth and kind of contributing a lot to the student body, especially with a lot of people going on internships. So she's hoping to streamline a lot of the organization and the processes that the team does, and I'll just be available to her if she needs help over the summer, just kind of getting everything going and sorting out any logistical issues as well as some of the other issues. And then Operation No Hotel Tantrums, which is Steffi's initiative, which she really wants to get out in front of the first years as early as possible. This could be collaborating with SC through emails or having video series early to kind of communicate and establish that relationship with the first years as they'll use a resource for them. And then also including EdgePals, getting that up and going early as well, especially since it hasn't really been utilized a lot in the past couple of years, just helping getting a lot of upper year mentors that can really be helpful to first years that need it. And if they're struggling for hiring, hopefully use a little bit of my connections to get a little bit more mentors for previous years.
Operation actions have consequences. So this is reviewing bylaw and policy to ensure that neutral parties and any other members involved in the general elections are held accountable if any policy is breached. So this is just putting it in formal writing that can happen. And then Operation Tell Me What's Wrong, Baby Girl. The system published a general feedback form. I think it already exists. It kind of just got lost when the website decided to croak. So just reviving that so students have an accessible and anonymous way to provide feedback regarding EdgeShock activities and events. And then Operation In My Influencer Era. So this is developing an effective marketing plan at the start of the year / in the summer to ensure that the Terry Fox Run and Squad Drive are well known both for incoming first years and for returning students. Operation Make the Design Bay Great Again. This is developing cost-effective and long-term solutions to improve any safety concerns that have been brought up this year, both by the faculty and by members of design teams in the Bay. And then Operation Clubs and Conferences Boot Camp, creating standardized trainings and centralized hub, which Remy started this year, which is awesome. So kind of just expanding on it and improving the consistency of transition and making these affiliated groups feel that they're actually part of EdgeShock. And then OperationBookIt.com is building a better system for handling the massive number of requests that our photo and video team gets for event media coverage, and also clarifying deadline expectations for these external groups so that people aren't hassling running around last minute trying to meet these deadlines.
Okay, Operation Does Doer Things. So Ella wants to reach out to Kingston businesses this summer to try to facilitate some sponsorship and help alleviate the costs associated with EdgeLinks. Operation Smooth as Butter. Zach wants to develop some resources to make the transition as smooth as possible for all the service managers and identify some incoming threats like tariffs we talked about. Operation Autobots, no. Automation, yes. Hadrian would like to essentially revive the initiative, is what he said. Create a clear and well-defined vision for the automation team.
My directors, there's lots of finance stuff in here, but bunch of month ends, DOE summer operations, this is like keeping up to date reimbursements, account balances, that kind of stuff, learning systems, but also using this as a testing ground so that hopefully if anything is going to break when automated, it breaks now and not later. Operation episode 5 Return of the Jinho, same thing again, but this also involves director of finance, perhaps finance officers as well, so just figured I'd put it in here because that's going to be a very collaborative project. Operation I'm an APSC 221 lecturer now, supporting director of finance and revamping affiliated group trainings so that they can better interact with the finances. This is also going to change quite a bit more if we do revamp the front end of how you interact with the finance system, so that might be a double-edged sword there. Operation No More Error 404, supporting Blake, our director of IT, in improving the back-end website structure so that we don't have nearly as many issues as we have this year. And then same thing here, Operation True Live and Train. EdgeShock training modules, except this, like my day specifically, is to help Maddie with the HR job. Summaries, this is basically just a tally of everything you've seen already. Nothing super crazy, big number. I chart. We can use Excel for that. Yeah. Thanks. We're happy to take questions on the comments of our strategic plan over the summer, budget, and wage motion. I saw a couple.
Okay. 1.1 question. First point for President-elect Linsky. What is the SCI formal number next year?
You fixed it later.
Well, I know. I want to check it.
Next question.
Okay. It was incorrect in the presentation, but it's correct in your documentation. I just wanted to point that out. Other actual question for Vice President-elect Paradis. You talked a lot in not just your like shared initiatives for Vice President Affairs, but also in one of your director projects, governance project, about specifically punishment and making sure things are in writing. And my question is, what is your intent with the punishment in that sense?
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I haven't read the entirety of Policy Milo, so that's why it's a summer project, so that I can spend the time looking at it and working on it.
Okay.
But more just that people, when they read Milo, it's very easy to tell, like, if I do this, this is what the consequence would be. Because I remember, like, my experience going through the general election, I read the portion that was for the general election, and I thought, I was a little confused about, like, what the, like, consequences would be for certain things.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would.
Planning information and policy character governance, that's like on purpose. So earlier in the year when there were election rules, they were brought to council, and my team initially decided, like, but we decided, like, we had originally seen that, oh, it's so confusing, if I do this, what are the consequences? So we made it more specific, and then a really great point, like, discussion happened at council where if it's, I do this, and this is the punishment, then there's a game you can play where, okay, I'm willing to have this punishment done against me. So by taking it away, and just leaving it vague, that allowed the system to not be gamed. So it was a specific decision that, like, we saw that issue, but we decided it was a worse issue to allow people to say, like, oh yeah, like, I would pay this fine, or I would do this for this. Instead, that way we can, like, the elections committee can react based on the severity of the offense, but more like the intent of it, instead of, okay, we did this, but it did it on purpose, or we did it worse, etc. And ERB is always involved when an actual consequence is put into play, so kind of a double-edged, like, I feel like it's two separate things. So, but that's why the election side, it is vague on purpose to avoid that.
Yeah, so point of information, Owen Kaspersky, Incoming Director of Governance. This is something that we talked about a lot, and I've part of the conversation this year. The main point of this is adding some accountability to the system. So like right now, this is an issue we talked about earlier this year, but we just didn't really have time to address it in terms of like when the elections were happening. But for the conflicts of interest, most of which are in this room, there's actually no consequences for your actions. And one of the issues that arose was you can then strategically impact and adversely affect a candidate that you don't support to support another candidate. And so there's a lot of potential there to impact others through your own actions, and it's most of the consequences in that sense are actually aimed at the people in this room, not the candidates themselves, and adding more strict rules for the people in this room and how they can interact with candidates and election processes. Yeah.
Hi, may I follow up? Okay, Connor Rosie, Derby Chair. Sorry, I didn't say it the first time. I want to say that, yes, I agree with everything that's been said, and we're all on the same page with wanting it to be clearer, wanting it to be more accessible, and everything like that. I just wanted to say, well, two things. One is I want to have my lower and myself meet with the new executive transition for next year, develop a working relationship anyway, but I think there's important and interesting conversations we have there about like this specific thing moving into next year. Because the second thing I have to say is a big thing that we've talked about is the ERB this year is a lot of, the two major words are precedent and escalation, which is when you get to a certain point where it's like, especially when you're talking about looking at the contracts for the affiliate groups, it's, you can have something written for like, this is what we do, right? And that's what the ERB does. We have certain prescribed procedures. But once you get past that point, it starts to be like, okay, where do we draw the line? Where do we stop? What is that point? So I think it's an important conversation to have and just keep in mind as you move forward with it. Like when things are written, it's very easy to go, okay, this is where we go, this is where we stop. I would just caution to make sure that that is being checked by the spirit of the policy around it. But I'd be more than welcome to do that.
Michael Williams, 77 President. Point of personal privilege. I had a personal thing just come up. I gotta go. Tom Proxy of the nearest IP7, which happens to be Zach, so it's a great day Oh, sorry.
Lucas Baylog Engineering Center, question for the incoming Vice President of Operations. You have significantly more hours than your other three exec. Any plans for how you're going to tackle that? Are you going to reduce some priorities? Are you going to take less vacation?
Yeah, probably reduce some priorities. There's some initiatives I have in there that are likely won't take as long as I budgeted for. Like some of the stuff. Let's pick one that I know won't take as long. Probably go to. Operation Canada is not for sale, but Turbo is. Like that might be a morning, not a day and a half, or sorry, a day and whatever. So that's just kind of built in everywhere. This also reflects my upper heavily. So yeah, it'll just be a matter of hours coming out of a couple things here and there.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Ben Demarisi, present. Question for Alexis. You talked about sort of keeping your execs afloat with the impacts of QUIP. I know we've had a brief conversation about this before, and a lot of senior students share this opinion that NSOC is very outdated when it comes to QUIP and integrating students with going on QUIP, and especially coming back from QUIP. It's incredibly difficult to get NSOC while coming back from QUIP. Do you have any plans to try to evolve the structure / approach of not just your execs, but sort of the general NSOC to account for the amount of students you have going on QUIP and the ones that are coming back that want to be involved but find it hard to do so?
Yes, I feel like that's kind of a full, like, exec, something we have to look at. Also, obviously, in consultation with Jay, because he's kind of monitoring that situation closer than we are at the moment. But it's, like, I think it depends on the position. Like, there are certain positions that kind of benefit more from students being on campus than not. It just makes transition really difficult if a student, say, is in, like, BC on QUIP, and they're just not able to physically be on campus to meet with their upper, to meet with, like, exec or the director that's overseeing them, like, that type of thing. So it's, I think, a delicate line to toe for value, what word? Like, their ability to complete that role in terms of the transition period versus somebody being on campus. But it is definitely something that we are going to look into, and it just takes more, like, knowledge than I have right now to, like, give a definitive reason.
Yeah, what is it?
What is not this was my kids for information on that? QUIP students aren't covered by our insurance, so we can't technically have them participate in any of our activities while they're on QUIP. So for things like service managers or a position that requires a transition, they're not covered. Or at least in the past they haven't been covered, so we think that they might be covered for transition specifically, but it's sort of a weird gray area, and because we want to make sure that we're not liable for anything, it gets a little tricky kind of higher QUIP students.
I'm gonna,
Unless they pay their dues.
I should say, I'm just gonna interrupt quickly and say that I think the exec has said that they're gonna look into this, and so I think that if we have specific recommendations or thoughts on it, then it should go to the exec, and it's not the full council issue. All right. I see no more questions. So we're gonna talk to Doug. Okay. So that was a lot of presentations and that took quite a long time. Typically, we only have a break after all of the motions, before all the reports, but I'm going to suggest to council that is my thought that we should take a 5-minute break right now. This is people to stand up, get some water, go to the bathroom. Does anyone have any opposition? Okay, great. We'll see you back at 8:26. Break. to the motions. Starting with motion number 3. Motion 3. Whereas the new executive summer budget and whereas it needs to be approved, be it resolved that council approves the 2025 summer budget as seen in appendix, the sixth sheet, but the sixth squirrel swiftly swapped, 6 silk scarves with 6 sleek swaps. Moved by Ian H. Schaefer, seconded by Alexis Isabreus, thirded by Jacob, second to Eddale. Additionally moved by Jordan A. M. Kalinsky. Is there an opening from any of our movers?
Ian Schaefer, Director of Internal Processes, and also Vice President of Finance and Administration elect. That's not to get old. This is the summer budget. We made it. It's not super deep. We'll scroll on here. I don't really have any like specific points. We can just kind of go through it line by line. I'll be okay with that.
Okay.
Or just like section by section kind of thing. But you guys also all have access to it. That's pretty much it. There's not really much explaining. Those that stuff when we can.
Okay. Thanks for that opening. We're going to move into debates. Are there any thoughts on the motion, on the budget? Yes, go ahead.
Lucas Baylog, Engineering Center. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought exec got their start and serve for the running clerk over the summer. Wait, average? I'm sorry, Rachel.
Sorry, multitasking and the words just came out. I paid for already, it was budgeted in this year.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Any further debate on the summer budget? Seeing none. Is there opposing from any of our members? Nah. Alright. Motion 3. Whereas the new exec made a summer budget and whereas it needs to be approved, be it resolved that council approves the 2025 summer budget as seen in appendix, the 6th sheep, but the 6th squirrel swiftly swapped 6 silk scarves with 6 sleek squawks. Moved by Ian Schaefer, seconded by Alexis Isabreus, third by Jacob Esdale. Additionally moved by Jordan Kalinsky. Can I see votes for the motion, please? Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Are there any abstentions? Would you like that counted in minutes? Motion 3 passes. Hooray. Motion 4. Whereas side 2-9 are pre-crash and cannot be considered a year, and whereas first-year engineering students often lack sufficient sleep, be resolved that council approves the replacement of the traditional GPAs with nightgowns to promote healthy sleep habits. Moved by Steffi Ebenezer Scrooge, seconded by Sophia Tiny Tim Mariani. Is there an opening from either of our movers?
Yeah. Steffi Leach, incoming director first year. It's a pretty standard thing, happens every year. Side 2-9 hasn't come yet, they haven't got the TAM, so no GPAs for them, but they'll have the opportunity to earn it back at Jackson Council.
Thank you for that opening. Is there any debate on motion 4? Yes, go ahead.
Okay. That's our EC president. Will these nightgowns be made with fun first?
Steffi Leach, incoming director first year. No, fun part has been removed from the jackets and therefore removed from the included in the replacement.
Follow up as our EC president. Wouldn't that just make it funnier?
That's a personal thing.
All right. Next is ERB Chair Bosey.
Connor Bosey, ERB Chair. When talking about Arts 3.0, I just wanted to ask real quick, are these nightgowns perhaps leather with a ear crust on it so they can really sleep in comfort, or are they just simply silk?
Steffi Leach, incoming director first year. Not as of now, but I'm open to suggestions for graphics and Go ahead.
Lucas Baylog, Engineering Center. Has a structural analysis been conducted on these plans to ensure that they are able to hold approximately 4 cylindrical aluminum canisters of about 473 milliliters?
Steffi Leach, incoming director first year. Yes.
All right. Is this a real point? Go ahead. All right.
Connor Bosey, ERB Chair. I just wanted to ask as to whether or not the Dopey team has thought about the possibility of many stained first-year residence beds once these nightgowns are dyed with gender.
This is a good point.
Steffi Leach, incoming director first year. The Dopey team hasn't thought about it because they're getting hired this weekend, and there is no Dopey team attachment to Genshin in
All right, thank you very much. Is there any further debate on motion 4? All right, seeing none, is there a closing from either of our movers? No? All right. Motion 4, whereas Sci 29 are pre-frost and cannot be considered here, and whereas first-year engineering students often lack sufficient sleep, we resolve that council approve the replacement of the traditional GPAs with nightgowns to promote healthy sleep habits. Moved by Stephanie Leach, seconded by Sophia Mariani. Can I see votes for the motion, please? Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Are there any abstentions? Motion 4 passes. Bad day to be. All right. Motion 5. Whereas the summer bursary committee is required to process orientation week bursary requests, and whereas all current bursary committee members have their terms expiring May 1st, we resolve that council elect blank, blank, and blank to the bursary committee. Moved by Callan, more money. Lejean, seconded by Sasha. Less problems. Oh, genie. Is there an opening from either of our movers?
Rajan, incoming director of equity advocacy. Bursary committee deals with all bursary requests for incoming students. The main ones that summary bursary committee will need to deal with are going to be orientation week, rec fees, and then they will also stay on bursary committee for the remainder of the year, doing things like jacket bursaries, your bank bursaries, any of the conferences that you go to outside of Queens, even the ones here. So having a bursary committee to do orientation week stuff would be great, because then more people can attend and we have an even better community.
All right, thank you very much. So this is an election, so the way it's going to work is that I'm going to ask for nominations. You are welcome to nominate yourself or another person, and every nomination has a seconder. We're going to have a list of people, and then we'll come down and do the whole questions spiel. Point?
Point of information, I guess. Can we re-elect current bursary committee members, and if so, get the ARSP members that
I'm getting a yes that we can elect.
Yeah, the not repeating only applies to higher positions.
One personal beverage.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. I see a point over here as well.
Yeah, point of information, Connor Bozzi, ERB chair. Historically, the elections to bursary committee have been tried to be separated between all the years present at the school at the time. I just remind council of that. Is that something that the movers are going to enforce in this election, as in a position for Sci 26, Sci 27, Sci 28, and Sci 25? I would say 3 there, but I'm asking if it's something the movers are looking to enforce, or if it is something that would just be a nice to have.
Advocacy would be very nice to have, but since we are only electing 3 out of the hopefully final 9 to 10 members at this council, we will be able to deal with that completely at council in Suntown.
May I follow?
Yes, go ahead.
Connor was your chair. Is this 3 then a hard limit today, or is it dependent on the quality of candidates today?
3 minimum. I initially had it worded as a minimum of 3 and maximum of 5, but we're going to leave it at a minimum.
And okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Point of information, Chloe McCloskey, just so that we know, last year, 6 members were elected, and that was seen as a really good thing, just because OB bursaries are really time consuming. So last year it was decided at this council that pretty much like the more the merrier. So I don't know if that means maybe council will look favorably on a higher number as well. But the year before, they only elected 3, and it was very difficult to deal with. Or 4, sorry. It was, but I just know it was very difficult the year before to deal with bursaries. So I think maybe we should consider that now.
All right. Thank you very much. On debate. We'll move into nominations. However, I'll also accept thoughts and debate if you have them. Is that a nomination? Yeah, go ahead.
Director of Science. I'd like to nominate Avery McFadden.
Is there a seconder? Seconded. Avery? Respectfully declined. Yes, go ahead.
Rajan, incoming director of equity advocacy. I'd like to nominate Zachary Gill.
Is there a seconder? Seconded. Zachary would like to accept or respectfully decline?
I'd like to respectfully decline.
Yes, go ahead.
Nominate Alan
adjourn. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Ally, would you like to accept or respectfully decline? Yes, go ahead.
Conroe Senior Review Chair, I'd like to nominate Ella Doris.
Seconded.
Yeah, okay.
All right, go ahead.
I'd like to nominate Paige Ellis.
Is there a seconder? Seconded. Yes, go ahead.
Wait, what was it?
Yes.
Yeah, Mark Walker, I'd like to nominate Via Nicola.
Seconded. Jay, would you like to accept or respectfully? Yes, go ahead.
That's not a good deal.
Ms. Bailout. Is there a seconder? Seconded.
Do I get the turbo the director of design owes me?
Sorry, Mr. Foster.
I don't get it. Oh, I'm cool with this.
Yes.
Conroe Senior Review Chair, I'd like to nominate Pranaz Alpandi.
Seconded.
I respect you.
Yes, go ahead.
Peggy Zapp, Director of Supervise, I'd like to nominate Remy Allison.
It's seconded, but the directors are already respectfully fine, so yes, go ahead.
Conroe Senior Review Chair, I'd like to nominate Charlie Angel.
Seconder? Seconded?
No, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Ian Schaefer, last number. Ian Schaefer, Director of Digital Processes, Vice President of Finance Administration, elect to vote to nominate, Mallow Hill.
Seconded? Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to nominate Monica Sad, Director of Academics. I'd like to nominate Jonah. Apologies, I can't do last year.
That's count, but I'd like to respectfully.
Yes, go ahead. You, Mariani, seconded?
I respect
Like half, they're black, yes, go ahead.
Conroe Senior Review Chair, I'd like to nominate James Hosevar.
Seconded?
I respect.
Go ahead.
Lucas Baylog Engineering Center, I'd like to nominate Sophia Thurston.
Yes, seconded? Yeah. Go ahead.
Monica Sad, Director of Academics. I'd like to nominate Pablo Silva.
Seconder?
I respect you.
Yes, go ahead.
Walker, President. General call, is there anyone who'd like to self-nominate? Because I feel like we sometimes miss that when we get into this.
Yes.
That's a wonderful question. Is there anyone here interested in self-nominating
Would
for?
any of our about pre-retired members like to?
Is there anyone who'd like to self-nominate who can self-nominate? I see no self-nominations unless you're raising your placard like just a little bit. Okay. Is there any final nomination, self or otherwise? Yes, go ahead.
Ellie Rose, Sergeant and Estep and Incoming Director of Educational Services. I'd like to nominate Jackson Ross.
Is there a seconder? Seconder?
What is the time for this?
The incoming director of equity and advocacy, basically the same as this past year. It's only going to be an increased commitment during the 3 weeks. So you're going to have like practice training all day Friday, and then all evening Friday you're going to be looking through bursary applications. But it's lots of fun because this year there will be pizza.
Can we have order in council, please?
So this will happen in person during 3 weeks? Sure, yeah.
All right. Yes, go ahead.
Clergy Policy Director of Governance, I'd like to nominate Jack Walker.
Seconded?
Do it.
Okay.
All right. Are there any further nominations? I see a couple. Go ahead.
Benjamin Mayor, ECE rep, I just have a quick question. Obviously, I'm not nominating, but, you mentioned that it's gonna be like in person. Is that a requirement just for everyone to know, or is it like also online? What's the consensus there? Yes.
Director of equity and advocacy. In person is completely optional. This past year we did it online because there were two or three members who were not in Kingston yet. But
on bursary committee and just excuse yourself from one particular meeting if you need to, because that might also work. Like this is like, there's other bursaries during the year, so you could also just step out for a week.
So are you choosing to continue with your nominations? Okay. All right, final chance, put your placard up high if you'd like to nominate someone. Yes, go ahead.
Ian Schaefer, Director of Regional Processes, Budgets and Finance Administration. I'd like to nominate Mike Rose.
I was going
If you don't mind, Community Director of Professional Development, I'd like to nominate Amy Green. I respectfully decline.
All right, are there any final nominations before we move into the question period? All right, anyone who's been nominated, come on down. I'm gonna ask you some Thank you very much, everyone. Here are all of our nominees for bursary committee members. Does anyone have a question for any of these people, or for all of these people, I should say? Yes, go ahead. There's a point there.
Well, it's not sorry, it was a question. I just.
Go ahead.
Okay. Connor Bosey, ERB Chair. Question for all the candidates. Bursary committee tends to deal with a lot of issues that have to do with various. Actually, let me rephrase how I'm going to ask this question. How would you challenge your own and others' biases while you were situated on bursary committee?
Great question. What should we say? A minute to answer the question? All right, candidates, you have 1 minute to answer the question. Although you do not need to use the full minute. I will let you know when you have 10 seconds left. We're going to start on this side and then go right back, and then for the next question we'll keep on the back. All right.
It's definitely important to mostly just question your own context and where you come from. Everyone's like previous experiences, that especially from their childhood and how it forms them as an adult, is the main course of how people feel about other people's experiences, and it will very much inform whether or not they judge someone appropriately. It also kind of depends on how they present their own case to you, and so it's kind of a culmination of understanding what's there, how your own experiences inform that. But it's also understanding the fact that because of how bursary committee is set up, is that you have to comprehend only the information that's in front of you. You can't extrapolate other instances just to try and keep an equitable process as much as you can. And a lot of the things that are talked about in bursary committee are not delightful. They're usually very hard topics because of people in the situations for various reasons. And so it's really important to understand just kind of the implication of how you view these different things.
Bursary committee's primary mandate is to decide two things. One, if someone is demonstrating financial need, and then two, where they rank and how much we can allot them based on their interest in the event and the need they demonstrate comparably in a mostly quantitative manner to the other applicants based on the resources we have. Which makes it fairly simple if you are just kind of going through the initial circumstances that they're in, but they are different. I'm very much small town person, so understanding what someone from a city or different cultural background like that, maybe even different country, is very, very different to me. But at the end of the day, you process through as engineers in their jobs to try to understand as many different perspectives and possible scenarios, and so that's what you do. You go through and figure it out for engineers.
This is a bit of a non-answer, but having seen the fact that we got more candidates after I was nominated, including another Sci 5 candidate, I would actually like to rescind my nomination. Very sorry, Chloe, I appreciate it a lot, but yeah, I'd like to rescind my nomination, sorry.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna let Jack walk off so that it won't distract you. I don't want her hands up.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay,
Go ahead.
for the benefit of the remaining candidates, the question as it was phrased is how would you challenge your own and the other members of the bursary committee's bias while acting on the capacity of bursary committee?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is definitely speaking up as soon as you hear something that should be questioned, not being shy, to question something that needs to be brought to attention, and so I think we're going to address those things, whether it's someone else, someone else's said, or things that maybe it's not or said right away, and also owning up to it immediately, because things can go in others pretty easily, but it's important to pay attention to everything that feels like to make sure you don't miss anything and catch everything that could possibly be addressed on them. And just not being shy to speak up about it, because this is some pretty kind of important stuff for a lot of different people with young children and any vaccines or something like that. So
Yeah, definitely just like be aware of the fact that we all have our unconscious biases that we hold whenever making decisions, and try to actively challenge that as you're, going through everything. Being willing to like not argue but advocate for the things that you're there for, and then just not only acknowledging your unconscious biases but everyone else's as well, and just making sure it's like on the forefront of your mind when you're making your decision. All that fun stuff.
Yeah, I'd say mostly just coming into all the meetings with like a really open mind and making sure that you're thinking about your own unconscious biases and all those like perspectives and experiences that you're coming into the meeting with, as well as everyone else, and then making sure that you're able to have like open communication with everyone else in the meeting, and that you're all kind of on the same page. And also just making sure you're focusing like on the main goal of bursary committee, which is, as we said, just to evaluate if they're meeting the criteria for financial need and if they should be getting this bursary, and make sure you're not sort of getting distracted by like other information that might not be pertinent like to your decisions.
Thank you very much, candidates. Next on my list is Eugene.
Oh, I just had a point. In the past, it's been done that the person who's running the motion and who is like actually in positions that we college got to ask priority questions before was open. I just wondered if Calvin had specific questions for the candidates before we start.
Yeah, Cal, do you have a question?
My first question is going to be, how do you deal with conflict with other members if you have a disagreeing opinion on what allocation of a bursary an individual should receive, and how do you best work through that with the member and then with the chair of the committee as well?
Great question. We're going to start with Lucas and then we'll go backward. I know I said you move back and forth, but you're going to have 1 minute again. You'll have 4 minutes.
Sounds good. Yeah, disagreements happen. That's why we have multiple committee members. We have a simple majority. Kind of at the end, in my experience on a lot of these things, we need to kind of as close to a compromise as we can. And at some point, we just gotta call whatever the majority is and move on. We've got a lot of people that applied for our jacket bursaries, for our week bursaries, and that sort of stuff. And we need to get those things through so that they can get out. And so deciding between a partial bursary or a full bursary on one candidate, fortunately, in the long scheme of things, you just need to kind of bite the bullet there and get through it and move on. And I think a big part of that, because you are moving through so many things, it's not being petty, not holding resentment. Yes, we're trying to keep it standard and stuff, but it shouldn't be sarcastically referring back. We should move productively and try to have those conversations so we can keep going efficiently.
right and this is why, like for clear reasons, not just kind of going off of vibes. And then not only being able to back up your reasoning, but being able to listen to other people's opinions and their reasoning and try and kind of find a middle ground and really see why you're each arguing what you are arguing. And then being willing to compromise and work together as opposed to just like trying to make it into like a cat fight when it doesn't need to be. But just having that like communication is a good thing to have around.
Yeah, I'd say mainly just making sure that there's sort of a mutual respect between all the members, and that they're respecting each other's opinions, listening to them, and actually like taking in what other people are saying, rather than just dismissing people's ideas and sort of focusing on their own opinions. Because it is part of what makes bursary committee work, is that so many people are coming in with different ideas and different opinions, and that sort of fosters that environment that's like making sure that we really treat it as fairly as possible. And then if there is sort of like a disagreement that's going on for a long time, it can be really helpful to just sort of move on, flag the candidate, and come back later, because looking at other applications can sort of give clarity about maybe some of the disagreements, and then returning to it later can avoid just sort of the time spent over disagreeing on something that maybe could be decided later.
This will give me good confidence that should we all be working together, that we'll be able to resolve things very well, because I agree with a lot of what all the rest of the candidates have said here. Having sat on bursary committee 2 years ago and been involved with it, most disagreements I saw came from a difference in priorities, and what people valued as the most impactful aspect varied from person to person, and that's where the primary amount of disagreements came from. So it all comes back to that baseline communication and respect, but it also kind of comes back to what we talked about with the last question, where it's discussing where these different preferences come from and these different priorities, and figuring out how that influences the conversation, and should that then inform the compromise that's then made, and all of those different kind of compounding aspects. But it definitely all comes back to just that baseline respect and conversations with each other, and eventually reaching that compromise.
As Vice President-elect Schaefer reminded me, you do have the option of ending the debate here, or you can open it up to questions from the council. It's completely up to you.
Does anyone have any other questions?
We can now open it up to the council. Are there any further questions for our nominees? All right. Thank you very much. We will now ask you to leave the room. Yes.
We haven't picked a number.
It's right, policy says four, so we just fix it with procedural motion after you guys decide what you want.
Oh, we're just gonna comment on this version of the
Through Chair, I'd like to make a procedural motion that we move to ignore the, or amend the bylaw for this specific election so we can elect 5 people instead of 4. Policy.
Yeah.
Policy, yes. It is specifically policy section, what is that, row.a.6.1.
Thank you very much for that procedural motion. Is there a seconder to elect? Thank you very much. Can I see votes for the motion to elect the technically incorrect number of people at this? Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the procedural motion? Are there any abstentions? Would you like that noted in the minutes? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, great. That passes. Thank you very much. All right. Is there any further debate on motion 5? Okay. Thank you very much. We will now move into voting. So, motion 5. Whereas the Summer Bursary Committee is required to process Orientation Week bursary requests, and whereas all current Bursary Committee members have their terms expire on May 1st, be resolved that Council elects Sophia Thurston, Madeline Hill, Lucas Bailov, Jackson Ross, and Ella Doris to the Bursary Committee. Moved by Callan and Rajan, seconded by Sasha Majini. Can I see votes for the motion, please? Ella Doris? All right, thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Are there any abstentions on motion 5? Would you like that noted in the minutes? Yes. Okay, cool. Motion 5 passes. Hooray, bursaries. Okay. Motion 6. All right, just so everyone knows that 9:35 will have to extend council, but that's fine because right now we're voting on motion 6. Whereas this will be even more of a pain to undo than it was to do, and whereas the new team would like to see how the first few councils go next year before setting it in stone, be resolved that the second reading of changes to bylaw as seen in appendix bylaw council report changes lapses. Be it further resolved that council 2025-2026 revisit this topic once everyone has had their chance to see both council formats. Moved by Jack upon thinking about it longer, seconded by Jordan, we should think about it more than thirded by Mo, many thoughts Kelly, and additionally moved by Alexis, much pondering greatness. Is there an opening committee of our movers? Yes, go ahead.
Jack, quack, Walker. Basically what it says in the opening. This doesn't, like even if this doesn't get approved, this doesn't get set in policy because it's the end of the year and there isn't a second reading motion, but it just felt weird to not say anything about this period when it was such a big topic of discussion before. So here we are. Basically just giving council a mandate to revisit this topic in the fall once everyone's gotten a few under their belt with the format.
Amazing. Thank you for that opening. Is there any debate on motion 6? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to keep everyone up to date about what happened, if anyone wasn't at the previous council. Basically, the 2 councils ago now, right? Yeah, 2 councils ago, a motion was brought to test run a new format with council where the directors don't have to read their director reports and where the entire section is cut out of the council agenda. And there was a healthy amount of discussion, and a lot of, I don't know how many people said no, but a lot of people said yes as well, and it passed, and it needed second reading to fully go through, but the motion had said that the rest of the councils are going to be a trial run, so the past councils we've seen, the people that are new in council have been trial run. The format for council previously had all director reports in it, and the directors would stand up and say something about what they did and sit back down. Just for everyone to be up to date.
Thank you very much. Is there any further debate? Yes, sir. Is there any further debate on motion 6? Seeing none, is there a closing to any of our movers? No? All right. Motion 6, whereas this will be even more of a pain to undo than it was to do, and whereas the new team would like to see how the first few councils go next year before setting it in stone, be resolved that the second reading of changes to bylaw as seen in appendix bylaw council report changes lapses. Be it further resolved that council 2025-2026 revisit this topic once everyone has had the chance to see both council formats. Moved by Jack Walker, seconded by Jordan Linsky, thirded by Mo Kelly, additionally moved by Alexis Bradish. Can I see votes for the motion, please? Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Are there any abstentions? Motion 6 passes. Alright, motion 7, moving right along. Whereas our directors have worked hard this year and the year is wrapping up, and whereas all their hard work did not go unnoticed and they deserve it, be resolved that council approves the director honorarium outlined in policy section beta.c.17. Moved by Avery, you guys are getting paid for this McFadden, seconded by Jack. Too bad we only got paid in summer talk with Walker. Is there an opening from either of our movers? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Avery, Vice President of Finance Administration. This is just a motion to go our director for the year.
Thank you very much. Is there any debate on motion 7? Yes, I saw Senator Baylock.
I think Connor should go first because I was gonna, my question was, I think he's gonna answer it.
Connor Wilsey, ERB Chair. I have received all of the transition manuals, so that is good to go. Just for my own due diligence, I didn't receive some of them until today. A little bit of miscommunication between Vice President McFadden and myself. It's okay, it happens. I just want to check with all the incoming directors in the room that they have all received their manuals in a timely manner and have been started to go through them. Incoming directors, if you haven't, let me know. If not, I assume you all have. Okay, wonderful. Here has nothing further to say.
Is there any further debate on motion 7?
That was my question.
Alright, seeing none, is there any debate or any closing from our movers? No? Alright. Whereas our directors have worked hard this year and the year is wrapping up, and whereas all their hard work did not go unnoticed and they deserve it, we resolve that council approves the director honorariums outlined in policy section beta.c.17 and moved by Avery McFadden, seconded by Jack Walker. Can I see votes for the motion, please? Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Are there any abstentions? Would you like that noted in the minutes? Motion 7 passes. Motion 8. Whereas the year is ending again, and whereas we appreciate the executive, be it resolved by council approves the executive honorariums outlined in policy beta.2.c, which accounts for 3 weeks worth of 2024 summer pay. Moved by Chloe, hot diggity-dow, McCloskey, seconded by Madeline. We're splitting the scene. We're full of beans, Provo. I did not write that. Is there an opening from either of our movers?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Chloe McCloskey, Director of Governance. I didn't write the names either. Avery, but I really liked them. I really liked them. I think that they deserve an honorarium just like us, and we just got given one because they're our bosses, so maybe they just get one too. Although this will be them getting paid in more than just summer job. Okay, I think that's
Thank you very much for that opening. Is there any debate on motion 8? A question? Yes, go ahead.
I think it's quite a change last year. In the past, it was 2 weeks. Did it get changed? I know, but I'm just curious. Did it change? I know I just do this. Okay.
that was not.
Was it easy? Okay. Yeah. I want the paper money to
Is there any further debate on motion 8? Seeing none, is there a closing from either of our movers? I think it's the same. Alright, motion 8. Whereas the year is ending again, and whereas we appreciate the executive, we resolve that council approves the executive honorarium outlined in policy beta.2.c, which accounts for 3 weeks worth of 2024 summer pay. Moved by Chloe McCloskey, seconded by Madeline Provo. Can I see votes for the motion, please? Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Thank you very much. Can I see any abstentions? Would you like that noted in the minutes? I see yes from all of them. All right, motion 8 passes. Hooray. Motion 9, whereas we love gay people, and whereas gay people did not exist in the fall semester, and therefore we did not have a club. Be resolved that Sophia Thurston continue as the president for the Queens Queers Club for the 2025-2026 academic year in accordance with policy gamma.b.3.1. Be it further resolved that an exception be made to policy gamma.b.3.2 for Madeline Provo, current president, and Zoe Irwin, former president, to be allowed to apply as vice president. Moved by Madeline, you're homophobic if you say no, Provo. Seconded by Sophia, we cannot say that, Thurston. Is there an opening from either of our movers?
Yes. Thurston and co-president in this context, I guess. But basically, for those who do not know, Antiqueers, we started the chapter back in like 2017, 2018, we're not entirely sure. It died over COVID. We revived it last year. It did decently well, and then the person who's supposed to be president this year
got a last minute quit, which is completely fair. So he was not able to do it. And so Maddie and I took over as co-presidents like basically in January. So we haven't really been able to do much. There's been no engagement pretty much at all for anything we have run. And our concern has basically come down to the fact that, especially with it being one of the equity clubs, since there is no stability or foundations for literally any of it, if we just open it up to general hiring, anyone who applies will not know what they're getting into in the slightest. They will not know the time commitment that is required, and we tried really hard to find a president that wanted this to go for this time commitment, and we were not able to. We found some people that are interested in VP but not president. Please, if anyone is interested, please come my way. We need people. But we do feel like it's really important to have this representation. And with how much of the planning for Entry Careers Canada, the parent company, happens in May, if we try to just extend until we could fill these positions, we would miss pretty much all of that opportunity to come up with collaborations with other schools, which will significantly weaken our chance of having a senior club. And so we don't like doing this. We think that trying to get around the up and out policy is bad. Neither of us like that we have to bring this, but we do feel like it's specifically beneficial to the club and its longevity. And that being said, if someone does step up and wants to be pres, I will happily step down and transition them. And we also think that this should absolutely set no precedent for this in the future. The only reason why we're doing this is because it's one of the equity clubs, and it has been a missing gap for several years. And it keeps being advertised in first years when it's not functional. So this should not be a thing in the commonplace. So we want to make that very clear that is our firm opinion, that that is the only reason why we're doing this. And so basically, the policy gamma.3.1 states no student may serve in the same position unless the hiring committee decides there are no sufficient candidates or if there are some other extraordinary circumstances. Since there is no hiring committee, that isn't just us, that doesn't really make any sense, we decided to come to council. We do think this falls into the extraordinary circumstances, but that is of course up to council's discretion. That's the whole reason why we're here. That being said, we do have a plan B should everyone vote no. It's not just going to be empty. We have a plan B to get them hired during summer. And then as for Maddie and Zoe being able to apply for VPs, this basically ensures that there's people that have this knowledge and context to take on positions to better enforce the stability and just be a logistical blessing more than anything else. And so Gamma.B.3.2, which basically states no student who is directly or indirectly overseeing an appointment may be eligible to hold a position which they oversaw in subsequent years. An exception may be made for them to apply during the extended application period. Both of them hold really valuable knowledge from this year. Zoe Irvin, the president from last year with the successful revival, is just really unfortunate how the circumstances for this year worked out. And so both of them have that really, really valuable knowledge for that stability. But with having to wait for the extension, that causes the issues once again with collaborating with Entry Careers Canada. And so it does make it significantly more difficult to us to plan properly for the upcoming year. And once again, considering the level of interest we've had this year, we're not, the chance of us filling these positions with people who have this previous experience versus people who want to join is pretty much non-existent. Also, our structure is very, very loose. We can absolutely find ways for everyone to be incorporated. So there isn't a risk of people not getting positions that they want to be involved in. Also, you can't absolutely say yes to one part of this and not the other. We're open to conversation here. That's the whole reason why we brought it here. A lot of folks will just kind of do this, and we didn't want to be those people. So hopefully that's a decent enough context to understand where we're coming from. We're plenty open to conversation, feedback, questions, concerns, everything.
Thank you very much for that opening. I have a list. First person on my list is Director Jean.
Yes, Sasha B, Director of the AFC. 2 points. Can we strike the nickname from the minutes? Yeah, that's appropriate. My second question is, through personal experience, I was president of the National Society of Black Engineers, and I totally understand the lack of candidates given very niche positions. However, is it a possibility to potentially open up applications, or can we confirm that have applications not been open for engineers for the incoming year, or are we just unable to find people through word of mouth because I'm just trying to think of that. I have a response to the Technical Government. So it's VP positions are open because no one has shown up to anything, they're not gonna know what they're getting into. So the intent with word of mouth was to get someone who understands the time level that is needed, because it is quite heavy with how little of anything there is. So that was our intent. We checked with everyone that's previously been involved in last year, trying to reach out to people who had just previously shown up to events, even as one-offs. And there's been no contact from anyone. So by all accounts, anyone who's been involved in Encourage previously is not interested, just at all. And so while we could open it, once again, we're back in that position of should we need to extend that going to be end of May. But then also, I'm more concerned for people's well-being who get in this position without knowing what they're signing up for. And because I've seen people get put in that position and either hate their time during it or just drop out entirely and not really take the time to fill the position after the fact.
I saw a point.
Point of information about what I was going to say, to answer your question directly, hiring has not been open.
Thank you very much. Next on my list is. Next on my list then is.
Okay, Airbnb Chair Convozi. First things first, 15 minutes to the end of council. I'd like to move to extend council for another half an hour.
There's a second there. The procedural motion, so we'll move straight into voting. Can I see votes for the motion to extend council for half an hour? Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Are there any abstentions? All right, thank you very much. Council has been extended until 10:05. Yeah.
All right, now my point for the actual debate. Reviewing the bylaws and their spirit and intention, I want to perhaps resonate with some of Director Lee's points on this motion. I think I can understand the thought behind them and where they come from to allow for the club to continue with a strong foothold, maybe not have somebody fall into something that they might not be able to fully fulfill. But I think that undermines the spirit of what we are as the engineering society in trying to allow for people to take on these roles, be that as they succeed or fail in them. I believe that my understanding from the opening of this motion is that there are people who care about this club, and even if they don't carry the moniker of president or vice president, they would still be around to help out. And I understand that without an official title, people may choose to prioritize their time elsewhere with roles that they have earned or need to keep up. But I think that not opening up these roles, or even like, we talk about, the way I see this is the two different be it resolves. The first point deals with the question of, is this an extraordinary circumstance, which is a precedent we must set. And the second point deals with, we're allowing people with intimate knowledge of a position to potentially run against people who have not had the chance to run without that. So I think my big concern here is that it just undermines the ability of the engineering side to say that we're giving our chances and our abilities for people to impact it. And I'm just a little worried about that from a policy standpoint. I think the other thing that we need to consider when looking at all this is that, like, yeah, you're still around. And I know that's not the greatest answer, but it's the one that I think aligns best with our spirit and policies. So that's currently where I stand.
Thank you very much. I saw a point from President Walker, but I have.
Yes. Jack Walker. Just a point on the second, be it resolved. I'm not sure that it actually changes anything to pass that be it resolved. Policy right now doesn't say that you can't apply for roles. It says that you can't hold them unless there's been an extended application period and there isn't basically other sufficient candidates. So, like, to me, this kind of, like, at least, like, I think with existing policy, it's kind of already allowed that if there's no other interest, Zoe and Maddie can apply and be VPs. Like, I don't know if this changes anything.
Okay, on direct response, Connor was a UP chair. Understood. Follow-up question, is hiring open for vice presidents currently?
Okay. So our interpretation of that policy you're specifically referring to was that they can only apply come extension, so this basically allows us to skip the extension process, if that makes sense. So they can just apply in the normal term, and we won't have to deal with extending it to May. Was the intention with this specific exception. Sorry.
there are other people on my list, so I'll continue going down.
Yes.
And then you have to take a second. Yeah. All right. Next on my list is Kennedy. Oh, right. Yes. Chloe, you're next on my list then.
Chloe McLaughlin, Director of Governance. I mostly just wanted to agree with the sentiment that I just feel like our hiring policies allow for circumstances where there isn't very much interest. The whole you allow an extension, like it's open to people, and then if people don't apply, they already talked about this. And I just think that is like a great practice. I think that's enough. This is like I'm Director of Governance this year, and I was never at all involved in the governance portfolio at all. And honestly, like it took me a while to be interested, and it was because it got extended, and because through word of mouth, people didn't know that I was applying. But I'm really glad that I got the opportunity, and I think that if there was the attempt to follow the regular hiring practices of putting it in the like weekly newsletter and like posting on Breezy and advertising it, maybe someone would want to run for this position. And I think that the courage of Sophia and obviously both of you guys could do a great transition for a new lower. Someone really wanted to do it, so I kind of think that the opportunity should be put out there to try to hire someone that might want to do this, even if they're not currently involved in any careers. I think you've seen multiple positions where people had no experience, but they wanted to do it and they did really great. So, yeah.
Right. Next on my list is Izzy.
Izzy McKee, Director of Human Resources. I was going to say the same thing as Jack, just that it already kind of allows for it, and since it's closing in a little over a week, like you can pull the position for that time, and if no one applies, like it's not like you're really pushing back the date that much. Just because you can keep holding that position if no one applies, apply, and then if no one else applies after the application deadline, like you're just gonna hold the position as it would if we were to like approve it now. So I feel like it makes more sense to follow hiring policy and not set the precedent, especially since if there's no other application for VP, it shouldn't really change the operation. It's my thoughts on it.
I'm Chloe McLaughlin, and I'd like to make a procedural motion to remove the speaker from the chair.
Oh yes, I'd like to do that.
Second. Can I see votes for the motion to remove me and bring in the deputy speaker? Votes against? Are there any abstentions? All right. Just because I feel like I should not be the one moderating this discussion when it directly impacts me. Lucas, that's the list of people that I have.
Alright, I'm just figuring out, I see a point of personal privilege, Vice President Kelly.
I have to go listen to the player show, someone said.
Oh, fair enough.
I'm gonna proxy the Alexis.
Do you also have a player?
No.
No? Okay. You are next on my list, so.
Awesome. Okay. Green, incoming Director of Clubs and Conferences. I'm not really a policy demon, just like preface, but I will say I think that MSHOT really brands herself as a no experience necessary organization. Oh, okay, sorry. And I think that the qualms about maybe transitioning and the issues with that and not having a steady knowledge of the club makes it difficult to preach this, as most positions actually should require no knowledge necessary, and there really is no transfer of knowledge necessary to run this club, as it's not like a technical thing. And yes, it is a big time commitment, but inclusivity is a really big pillar of this society and organization, and no attempt has been made, really no open posting on Instagram or anything, social media's open advertising has been made to basically the general public. Only, I guess, it's been word of mouth saying, hey, do you want to be president to take on this position? And therefore, I think that kind of goes against what everyone in this room stands for.
I'm going to keep going on the list because I don't think there's a direct. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Director. Oh, can you?
Sasha Lee, Director of Equity and Advocacy. Yeah, just to reiterate, I don't mean to keep this argument circular, but just because I feel like it resonates. My only concern or question really is why we can't send the current presidents to upcoming events, because I understand that you're not technically in a position as of May 1st, but this is something that you could act as a representative in theory if there's a lack of candidates. Second of all, I'd like to echo Ping's point as well as a lot of points that were presented in the room. Once again, the act of sort of not opening applications sort of perpetuates a bubble that is internal to that club. Speaking from my experience with NESB, like even being president or acting as president this year, the entire organization is a different face this year and the following year. So that's that act of posting on social media, putting up posters in ILC, having it in all eng. Although you might not have candidates that are currently on eng queers right now, you might have them in the future. And I think it's a bit unrealistic to sort of conclude that people will not be able to step into the role or will not have the expertise to step in a specific role. Once again, like to echo what Kate said, it's not necessarily a very technical position, and I think having different experiences is what makes someone capable of this role. So I think it's vital that applications are open again. I think it's, especially for an equity deserving group that is supposed to be representative of a particular community.
Yeah, okay, there was a question in there, so I'm gonna allow a direct response.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I followed your point, but I
So
wasn't sure it's what
why are we not able to send active representatives of eng queers to the upcoming event as of whenever it is May 1st?
Yeah, sure. Madeline Provo, speaker, engineer, co-president. That's a great question. I think for us, what we really wanted is for whoever were to come in, whether it be one of us or whoever new, we wanted them to understand what they would be doing in the next year. We would want them to have input as to the Educators Canada situation and setup. Is my direct response to that question.
Yep.
But I have other things to say about the other questions.
And you are on the list to come later.
Wonderful.
All right, Director Shaw. President. Oh, yes.
Yeah, no,
Sorry, you're out.
I'm old. I'm old.
Sam Shaw, I'm not president. I had one question regarding the timeline. You just reiterated that, like, come May, you would need someone to fill, but the positions are open now and it's March 20th. Oh, sorry. If it's now and the positions are open March 20th, like, where's that timeline for being unable to fill something in May?
Direct response to Peterson and Christopher, it's because we can't hire during exams that would have to be pushed today.
Perfect. And then I also had a point as well as a question. I'll keep it brief because it's just echoing other things people have said, but within the society we have positions, especially like even including like with directors and the executive director team, where many of those members have no experience. When I went to my director interview, I literally was walking around the ILC looking for room 106 because I didn't know what the student lounge was. And like I absolutely loved it and I was able to like kind of roll with it, and those are positions that require lots of effort, so I think, and time commitment, so I think that with proper marketing and making sure that the posting includes like things that you're worried about, such as time commitment or maybe issues that came up this year to make potential candidates aware, maybe that's something that could help mitigate some of the concerns we're worried about.
Okay, before we move on, I would like to remind council to avoid as much as possible repeating what someone else has said. I understand if you agree with it, but we are running late, we do need to keep moving. Incoming Director Schaefer. Sorry,
Ian Schaefer, Director of Regional Processes, Vice President of Finance and Administration Elect. Am I correct in saying that when you guys were hired, when the current co-presidents were hired, that the position had been open for many, many months before that? Because we had the person drop out way before, is that correct? So in opening the position, you said there was no interest, like the club has had very low engagement, there was very low interest in the position today. Why do you foresee opening the position to actually be an issue in that someone wouldn't apply if you haven't had applications for 5 months before the two of you took this on? A, and B, the two of you took this on and were evidently very successful because you care enough to submit a motion like this to council. So why wouldn't there be somebody else who would come out of the woodwork 5 months down the road and pick up the club and try to do something similar to this thing?
Alright, either of our movers and direct response. Sure.
Can I, before we forgo the direct response?
Just go for it.
Okay, great. So, Madeline Provo, Integrated Co-President, I want to say thanks everyone for providing your great input. Both Sophia and I really have agreed with a lot of what you say. We really believe that one of the beauties of the engineering society is that you should have to have experience to run for a position. I think where the spirit of this motion is that we don't want this club to die, and I know that none of you want this club to die as well. And I think that the way that we chose to go about it has sort of been fueled by a sense of fear almost in a way, concern, because both of us stepped into this role so late. We were worried that should we have to open up elections again, or hiring, we were worried that we wouldn't have applicants, and that would sort of continue the cycle of people not applying and then someone getting, feeling like they needed to make sure we keep this club alive, and then it being too late in the year, and sort of the process that happened to us. I would personally like to remove this motion. I think that you all have brought really great points. And I would like to clarify, just for both of us, that should be open, the vice president position is open now, and we've been posting it, etc. Should we open the president position and no candidate should apply, and we extend it to be able to apply? I'm correct in saying that? Okay, great. So then I would like to remove motion 9 and say thank you all for your points. They were great points. And we'll move forward with it.
Can I get a clarification? Are you completely removing your motion, or are you taking over your motion?
We're removing it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just as an addition to that, with the consent of the applicant, you actually can also interview after week 12. So if you're the applicant, you're cool with that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay. Is this something all of council needs to know? Okay, sorry. I've been trying to cut people off. Chat, and somebody spoke of my.
Sorry, yeah, my bad.
All right. Okay, I need to finish up this motion. Okay, do either of our movers have to close it?
Point of order.
Right, it's gone. Yeah. Okay, so now, procedural motion.
Motion to remove.
Motion to reinstate Maddie is.
There we go. Motion second, all in favor? Hey, let's stop. Maddie's there, back.
I'm back.
I'm like trying to think it through, like, yeah, and then replace the whole thing.
All right, thank you very much. I am back. All right, thank you very much for all that debate on motion 9. I really appreciate it. We're gonna move right along into motion 10, which I'm still gonna call motion 10. All right, motion 10. Last motion. Whereas it is the last council of the year and Side 2-8 doesn't have a nickname, and whereas they have extreme FOMO during your reports when they don't have one, be it resolved that council approves the nickname for Side 2-8. Oh, it says Side 2-7 in my. I know. Side 2-8 to be blank. Moved by Chloe. I can't believe no one submitted this motion, but Klaus, seconded by Maddie. You mean thank you for the reminder, Provo. Is there an opening for either of our movers? I have no opening. This is gonna run like an election. No, zero. No, I was just saying that. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move into debate, so it's going to run like an election. So if you have a name to suggest, I'll call on you, I'll write them down, and then we'll vote on them. Yes, Senator Bailey.
Lucas Baylog, Engineering Center. I would like to remind council that last year we chose Side 2-7 to be Side 2-7 seconds to finish. And right after receiving a presentation from the SVPR rep, where we were reminded about a fact that is still true today, that most people in our community here at Queens are actually turned away and more concerned about sexualized jokes and the inherent extreme masculinity that they can create sometimes than some of the problems we have with alcohol and that representation. So just please keep that in mind as you're proposing them. I don't want to curtail your fun, but I also don't want to repeat last year.
Thank you for that point. Yes, ERB Chair.
All right. Connor Bosey, ERB Chair. In honor of this being somehow the final council to have representatives from Side 2 Forever Fraud, and because the first years are so very young and will be so very young forever, I'd like to propose that we continue the nickname on in calling them babies for eternity by calling them Side 2 18 Forever.
Thank you for that name. Go ahead.
That's every friends. I'd love to continue this tradition that was established by Peter Matthews, ECU rep, for those of you old folks. And propose Side 2 8 feet short of the 10.
Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Ella George, Side 2 AMS rep. I represent both of those as Side 2 myself. So I would like to propose Side 2 8 that up. Recently.
All right, order for council, please. Yes, President Walker.
Walker, in honor of 80s music, I would like to propose Side 2
Point of information.
Yes.
Connor was at your chair. Question for President Walker. Are we mandating that that be sung every time?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That needs to be included in the motion, so we're all aware.
Seems like the octopus is no one is being said.
Hey man, I'm responsible for
I got that.
Okay. Are there any more suggestions? Yes, go ahead.
Madam President, I'll fill with the wording with something hybrid related like Side 2 avoid meets or something like that. That came to mind. Fill with the
As a pirate lover, all right. Can we have order at council, please? I know this is very fun, but I'm also very serious. Yeah, over here. Yes, go ahead.
I'd like Director Superman, I'd like to propose since our new dog is a Side 2 8, Side 2 8 my homework.
Are there any final suggestions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. In the shebangles of my heart. All right. I'm seeing none. So we're gonna move into debate. Question for council because I'm not sure. Is it that you can only vote for one nickname? Yeah.
Hey, ECU rep. May I suggest, since there's so many and both may be split, and since I'm of the opinion that I would like not Side 2 8 to win the one that I want, I think that we should have multiple votes to ensure that Side 2 8 does not get Side 2 8 out.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, point of information, Connor was at your chair. The recommended way for this to work with all these, it's the same way as like a candidate. It would be if the difference between two nicknames would be swayed by any amount of votes in another nickname, then the lowest nicknames get removed. I.e., if like the top two are like 4 apart, and obviously there's 4 more at the end of them, and we'll do like a ranked around voting until we get to one that is inevitably what council chooses.
Okay.
So it's one vote to start that?
So it's one vote to start, and then we go from there with the results.
All right. Thank you very much. And to clarify, everybody at the council gets a vote. We could on this.
They don't deserve right.
Technically,
Hey,
technically, Side 2-8 has a majority share in votes right now. So if we make this motion to where everyone can vote, we'd get a great nickname for them.
Seconded. All right. Can I see votes for the motion to allow everyone to vote on this? If you're not Side 2-8, you should put your placard up. Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Would you like that noted in the minutes? Are there any abstentions?
I just want to clarify, council, that it is only for the purposes
Yes.
of the nickname.
Yeah. So anyone who is here right now can vote on the nickname, however, you will not be given a vote on the actual motion when it is read later. All right, so as a reminder, everyone here gets one vote to start with. We're going to start, oh, I have to pick my favorite. Okay, we're going to start with Side 2, 18 forever. Put your placards up if you want this. Very sad. All right, next, Side 2, 8 feet short of the TAM. Can I see votes for Side 2, 8 feet short of the TAM? Put your placard up high, because I don't know what this is. Is that a vote? Is that not All right.
It's worse than ours.
Next, I have Side 2, 8 that up. Thank you. Next we have Side 2, 8, 6, 7, 5, 3, 0, 23. All right, Side 2, ahoy, mates. All right, and then lastly, Side 2, 8, my homework. That was pretty good. I like that. All right.
Yeah.
That's 8 plus 8 plus 7.
Technically.
No.
If it's 22, then the 23 wins, if that's the math. It is 25 though, so that's not the correct math.
Okay, the difference between the top two choices, which are Side 2, 8 that up, and 8, 7, 6, 5, whatever.
309, yeah.
Sure. The difference between this is not more than these two combined, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Okay.
I actually can't get math. So, okay.
Okay. Yes. That's how that works. Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna do a revote, but everybody's options are only the Side 2, 8 that up, or Side 8, 6, 7, 5, 3, 0, 9. Okay? All right. Votes for Side 2, 8 that up. All right, and then you all right. Can we have order in council, please? Thank you very much. First of all, we've got less than half an hour until council is scheduled to end, or less than 15 minutes. Or, just kidding, it's 20, never mind. A reminder that that's coming up soon. Cool. All right, great. So we now have a nickname in place, but we still have the rest of the debate to get through. So does anyone have any further debate on motion 10? All right, seeing none, is there a closing from either of our movers? I have a closing, but I'll put a vote speaker. Can someone clarify how the tune goes? All right, cool. Okay, sounds great. All right, thank you very much. Motion 10, whereas it is the last council of the year and Side 2, 8 doesn't have a nickname, and whereas they have extreme FOMO during your reports when they don't have one. Be resolved that council approves the nickname for side 2H to be side 26. Oh gosh. Side 2H 675
What do you do? Jake West, County Vice President of Operations. It should be, it's a phone number. So 867. Yeah, right there. Yeah. That's the phone, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to go back and reread the motion because I got interrupted by my own lack of saying numbers. Okay, motion 10. Whereas it is the last council of the year, whereas side 2A doesn't have a nickname, and whereas they have extreme FOMO during your reports and they don't have one, be resolved that council approves the nickname for side 2A to be side 2867539. So passionately. Moved by Clement Costa, seconded by Bobby Provo. Can I see votes for the motion, please? You only get a vote if you have a vote normally. Thank you very much. Can I see votes against the motion? Would you like that noted in the minutes? Are there any abstentions? Motion 10 passes. Okay, so that's the last motion of council for the year. We're going to move into reports. Starting with the executive. Okay.
Jack, quack, 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 walk it up. That's my last one. No, this is going to be an A. Yeah, so over the last while, sort of science formal was like the final boss of my portfolio. Like, there's obviously still stuff to do, but that was the last kind of big looming deadline for everything. So week leading up to that, there was a lot of sort of back-end stuff with like liability stuff, mostly with the build. Since that, it's just been a lot of miscellaneous meetings, side formal debriefs, random, like just a lot of miscellaneous stuff and transitional stuff recently. ERB general members are going to be hired shortly, as well as deputy chair. We have 2 side formal chairs that are still up, now open to current interns because formals already happened. So if you know anyone who's currently equipped that would like to do that, send them my way. Dealing with some OE stuff as they come up because we're starting to get into a busier period for OE again. And then also ongoing conversations with the AMS about the renewability of the engineering society membership fee, which has been a bit of a pain. Other than that, just missed stuff. Faculty board, direct entry programs are being voted on at the next faculty board meeting. We will discuss that more in the faculty board report. Also update about the Reimagining Engineering Education project. Kevin Mumford, who's a civil prof, has been hired as the new associate dean of interdisciplinary programming for that. So that's cool. And then just transitioning Jordan more in terms of non-EDP stuff, because that was what we focused on when he had just been elected. Over the next 2 weeks, it's going to be a lot more of the same. It's just basically at this point meetings, transitional stuff. We want to have everything nice and wrapped up, ideally kind of before or mid-exams, not for me first exams. Yeah, only other unusual thing in the immediate future is Questi. We have our long-range planning meeting and also our transition board meeting, so lots of books to our next couple weeks. Also, I would like everyone who has the agenda currently open on their computer to go fill out the CFPS National Survey. In all seriousness, not just a plug for the Now on There exec, but it's an important survey. It basically allows the CFPS to inform their stances document and their advocacy with the federal government, with provincial government, sort of the Iron Ring people awarded, with Engineers Canada and the CEAB. But if we have a tiny, miserable sample size for the national survey, they will look at it and go, this does not represent the views of Canadian engineering students, this represents the views of you and your buddies. So I would seriously encourage everyone on here to go fill out the national survey. It's linked in the agenda, not once, or my report, not once, but twice. So yeah, in all seriousness, take 5 minutes tonight, go do it. Go do it right now while we present our reports, but it is actually important. Thank you very much.
Hi, Council. Lily Stock, Vice President of Operations. I think that's the last time I say that. So the last 2 weeks, our Quad 9 education engineer lowers, but also been supporting it necessary with hiring, just as Larson do a lot of hiring. We finalized the plans for the various services appreciation and transition events. Avery and I met with the bookkeeper last week to discuss our books. Classic, often an FA moment for us. My director said wrapping up the services years is going to add more
Thanks.
I will likely be passing my classes, not going to the classes, and then going off to the ether. So that's Toronto actually. And I will likely be getting very emotional because while I have full faith in services will continue to be servicing for the first time as the first year, I will have absolutely no fun. I am now officially washed from old, rest in peace to me. Before we continues with this report, I just want to say a couple of words. I just want to say thank you to everyone at council. I've been going to council since I was in first year, and so obviously Angela has been a big part of my life. And I want to thank everyone in this room for being so dedicated and making engineering society what it is. I also want to say thank you to my executive. Most not here, but I love you guys. And I don't know if everyone can see the work you guys put into it, and I'm not going to cry. And I want to say thank you to my directors, Kenny, who's not here, but Kenny and Charlie, and being the half my director at the end of this year. And I know you guys don't always see the services stuff that's kind of kept behind the scenes, but a lot of work has gone into keeping all that stuff running, and you've all killed it this year. Good luck to the new team. I have so much faith in you guys. You guys will do so well. Jacob, you're going to that. I'm so happy for that. That's it. Goodbye. Good night.
Jack, Walker, for Mo Kelly, VPSA, set players. Past 2 weeks, yeah, final push of events. Lots of affiliate groups have had their kind of year-end wrap-up events in the last little bit. Meeting a lot of our directors and continuing through their great work, as well as continuing the transition allowance. As well as continuing to transition Alexis into the role. She attended faculty board as well as a reception for student leaders at Ben Dixon House with A-Parade. Also an MS exec awards committee meeting, which is kind of like our awards process, but separated based on topic. Over the next 2 weeks, it's going to be lots of hiring. If you're interested for a position for next year, hiring to look out. Meeting with FIPCO, lower and SBPR lead, as well as AMS assembly, which we have 2 of in the next immediate future, faculty board, and Crying Wood Number councils. Lots of love, Mo Kelly.
I was cleaning outside foremost. You couldn't come help? No, I have the right.
Avery Patton, Vice President Administration. Happy bittersweet goodbye, Council. Okay, the last 2 weeks I have been doing regular statics with my directors, crunch time with the info banquet. That's going well. The RCP are supposed to be out today. We're going to the next slide. But RCPFI is still an interesting program, so we're going to hopefully get that figured out and sent tomorrow. Other things that we're going to finance with Adam, you saw the 2 presentations, the 1 presentation about finances tonight. We do have the transition tracker, transaction tracker working now, so that will be sent to everyone to finalize all of their actuals. Also working with Jay a lot to finalize our DFS for the last 3 years. That's really fun. On the HR front, they're planning another feedback booth. This one will be like March, like hiring, fall based. That will be either April 1st or 2nd. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Other than that, just all the transition with me. I also attended the thing with that was super fun. Over the next 2 weeks, I will be continuing playing back with Ian. Invites will be going in tomorrow. I'm going to hold myself to that, so check your invites tomorrow. That being said, when you do get your invite, please respond to it as fast as possible. We are going to try to maximize the amount of people that can go to banquets. So like if you can't go, that sucks and I'm sorry for you, but like please RSVP now so that we can invite like the next group of people. Anyways, pass it on to your sub-teams too. That's most other stuff. Here when we can end the testing manager, hopefully we'll be planning a showcase for week 12, so if you grab that, that should be fun. And then other than that, just finalizing finance stuff with Adam for the year. And yeah, always spoke good as well. That's really helpful. Very nice. But yeah, thanks for an awesome year, everyone. exec has definitely had its ups and its downs, but yeah, it's been a ride. Shout out to my directors. You four are awesome and have helped me out a lot in many circumstances this year. So like, shout out to you guys. Yeah, it's been a fun year. Oh, and this was a remake of Aiden's Me, so shout out Aiden.
Alright, thank you very much. We're gonna move into the first question period. If anyone has any questions for the executive or director team.
Motion to extend council, or am I confused?
Yeah, we have 8 minutes, but sure, seconded. Can I see votes for the motion to extend council for another half hour until 10:35? Thank you very much. Votes against? Votes against? Are there any abstentions? Alright, extended. Any further questions? Yes, go ahead.
I have a question about the question period. Can I make a statement or should I wait it?
Hold your statement, guys, that's last. Alright, seeing no questions, we're gonna continue with the reports, with the report from the faculty board. Yes, go ahead.
Jack, Walker. As always, I think you really better minutes of this meeting than I did, so please feel free to catch me up if I miss anything. Thank you very much. The most prominent discussion we had was about the direct entry stuff, which I'll get into in a second. The other stuff that was discussed, like the dean and 2 of the associate deans are missing, so the reports is pretty brief. We talked a little bit on the labor action, but it was basically limited to the extent of the email that we all received as students like a couple weeks ago, or a week ago. The opinion of faculty board is they're an academic body, not like a university politics body, so they're not going to be formally taking a stance on it. I think that was kind of it for non-direct entry related discussions, as far as I can recall. Yeah, so the direct entry programs discussion is obviously kind of the big one here. For those who missed it last time we talked about it, there was a notice of motion at this faculty board, which basically means they're going to be voting on it next time, of a proposal to add direct entry streams to civil, mining, chem, and chem. So because they're typically under-enrolled, that introduces sort of financial and operational struggles, whereas MEC, for example, is very big, or ECE is very big. And the idea being that if you search up on like OUAC, Queen's University, and you see that they have a chem program and a mining program and whatever, then more students interested in those programs will come here instead of people only coming here for in general and they're undecided, and then predominantly go with the MEC, for example, which is considered to be a more like general degree. So that's kind of the idea behind why this is being proposed, to address the operational challenges of our program growing pretty quickly while still having the guaranteed free choice. But that being said, students in these direct entry programs would, for now, have the same course structure as everyone else in first year, although they were discussing potentially changing that in future years. And would, if they want to switch into a different discipline from their direct entry, they would have to like apply to that and actually meet a GPA cutoff and limited spots and everything, so it wouldn't be a guarantee. From talking to council and also just from the people who were in the room, I've yet to meet a student who's like, yes, this is good, and plenty of people understand why it's being proposed, because there is some difficulty in the university, like financially. But I think students who I've spoken to at least feel generally pretty critical about it, in that there's a lot of other options that we talked about with the Vice Dean Academic of ways to encourage students to go into these under-enrolled disciplines that haven't really been looked at. So at least my take, and I think the take of a lot of people I've spoken to, is that this is a bit of a rush job. So again, I said this last council too, but if you have concerns about this, and I really do, it seems kind of like a distant thing, but like this will have very real impacts. If you're in first or second year, like by the time you're in fourth or fifth year, you will be seeing the impacts this will have on the student community. If you have concerns, reach out to your profs. Every faculty member that teaches an engineering class is a voting member of the faculty board. This motion is not guaranteed to pass. There are faculty members on faculty board who have expressed concerns with it as is, and the normal composition of faculty board is just the real keeners. So if you have profs that you think would also have concerns with this, or would be receptive if they heard students' concerns, reach out to them, talk to your classes, send emails, go chat with them after lectures. I really don't think that this is a thing that is set in stone going to happen, but if this is something that you feel you want to make an effort to change, this is going to need to be a concerted effort, not by the exec, but by the student body. We're going to be sending out a mail blast outlining all of this, probably to the entire student body sometime either this weekend or next week, so that everyone is on the same page and to sort of avoid misinformation spread. But yeah, I mean, you guys, again, everyone in this room is student leaders, you're elected to represent people. If this is something that you feel is important, then yeah, go represent. Yeah, April 9th is the next faculty board meeting, so that's, if you have problems, tell them, hey, these are our concerns. If you share these concerns, please go vote against.
Real quick, not directed at your staff, they did give us the full discipline allocations if
yes,
any DSCs are interested. And I also asked on the labor strikes, grad students should be able to graduate on time. They said not to be concerned about it.
That's true.
Fourth year.
Graduating class.
Yeah.
Like, they should be able to graduate on time.
All right, thank you very much for the faculty board report. Next is AMS report.
Jack, quack. Walker. AMS Assembly has not met since our last council meeting. The next one is Monday next week.
Thank you very much. Senate report.
Lucas Baylog Engineering Center. Yeah. Holy cow, I've been going to too many meetings. Yeah, so Senate has not met, but I've been dealing with quite a lot of different things. I've gotten a few procedural matters going through. The biggest one is it was pointed out to me that there was a very big Band-Aid solution put on religious accommodations. And with Ramadan being closer to the midterm season this year, where it was closer to exam season last year, kind of screwed off a whole bunch of things, and profs were struggling to provide the accommodations. So we're gonna have Senate looking into that. If you specifically have had experiences with religious accommodations or other non-disability linked accommodations not being met very well because they can't be done through the Ventus system or other accommodation systems, please let me know, because I've got to write a whole bunch of letters to a whole bunch of different people outlining various arguments and concerns about that, and would like some more insight. It is now confirmed that we're going to have about 300 seats moving out of arts programs for the class of 2030. So starting with the admission cycle next year that we'll be approving at this upcoming meeting, that should see an increase of us of about somewhere in the ballpark of 50 to 100 students. We're not quite sure yet. It's just we have more flexibility than computing and health side that they're trying to move them into as well. So we'll see where that one ends up going. We're gonna have a discussion next week about that. In terms of job action stuff, you have rights. If you look them up, Senate says you have lots of rights. The Ontario government says you have lots of rights. Please come talk to me. I'm happy to explain what your rights are in terms of entering buildings and such. Yes, I've been having lots of conversations about academic progression and a few different things with the strike action. I had my monthly run-in with the principal's office and advised them on some concerns about the security that was kind of just pacing around the ILC on a random Monday morning in tack vests and stuff that I didn't think was productive or welcoming. And that has since been dealt with, which I was glad to see. As well as, yes, the dean himself has personally promised every professor that he will go and proctor their exams to make sure that things happen and we get through. If that's actually gonna happen, well, I don't know. If the dean shows up at your exam and like you can still take a picture, I want a picture of the dean proctoring the exams. But yeah, we're gonna make it through. Basically what the rules are for if the grad students keep on striking to like pass this semester is your grades will be put in SOLIS as deferred. They will prioritize moving profs and other non-grad TA union personnel to marking fourth year exams to hopefully get those final marks in before their June graduation and get them out of here, and then kind of go throughout the years. So there is unfortunately a very unlikely scenario, but albeit still one possible, that if the grad TAs are still on strike come September, and the professors and other non-union personnel have not been able to catch up on the other marking, you could be in a spot where you don't have the prereq credit start a course, and then they finally catch up on the marking from this semester, and all of a sudden you failed that course, and then you're taken out of that course. So very extreme case, but I just wanted to say that to prove that they have covered all their bases. We know how different things map out. Again, you have rights, we're monitoring them. I'm going to be leaving lots of notes and messages to my lower. Yeah, get ready for that transition manual. About what to do and where we can go poke buttons if there is issues. So just be aware if something looks fishy, say something, because we can deal with it. And then final reminder, your profs do have the right to just walk off the job and stop teaching class. Usually they should be providing some sort of online thing, but you do not have that right. If you stop submitting assignments, you get a 0. There is no protections for that. Just want to make that one 100% clear. Other than that, I've enjoyed my time on Senate and on council especially. I know there's lots of arguments. Senate gets way more heated than this, trust me. But it's because people care about this university. We've all been here less than 5 years and care about this university and this culture very significantly. I've met a lot of profs that have been here close to 40 or 50 years, and it's interesting just exponentially how much they continue to care about this university. It's been really special to me as a student leader, as a volunteer. I want to thank everybody who has either been on my side, but also given me somebody to debate against in a professional and productive manner. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much for the Senate report. We now hear the report from the engineering review board.
Yeah, Connor Bosey, engineering review board chair. Can you pull up my Okay. Yeah, as it says, crazy things my last council. Been doing a lot of back-end work in terms of documentation to get the all my manuals and stuff ready for my lower. I'm really trying to work on making sure that all the precedent that we've set this year is like able to be passed down. Working with Kate to try to like verbally pass that along as well, so we have like conversations about where some of the major issues are. I say the manual's about 50% done, but thank you to the lady on the plane who decided that she would lean her seat back because that doesn't seem being able to have my laptop on my lap and not. So that was not as productive as a plane ride as I wanted. Shout out to her. I'll be getting that done in the near future. Just reminders moving forward. Thank you all for your time this year. I really do have seen some great work, and I just about our engineering society. I wish you all luck as well. It's been great. Development plans, like I said, just for the end of the year, we're trying to make sure everything's there. We're going to do a full clean through of the drive to make sure that our internal policy practices, internal confidentiality practices are kept up and things like that. And just trying to make sure that the roots are in place well enough at this point that the ERB will continue to go for many years and won't just become the Director of Human Resources again with an email. So yeah, just trying to do a lot of that. You can look at my meme. Many people have, yeah, there you go. Many people have echoed thoughts tonight, and I will be the latest, and I don't know if last, but the latest to do so. I just did the quick math in my head. This is my 32nd council. Makes me feel old. I sat in this very same position 2 years ago and watched Peter Matthews, EC rep, stand up and deliver a rousing speech about the importance of understanding other people and really fighting for what you're passionate about, and how council impacted him. And I really wish I could just open my mouth and have a speaker box come out with Peter Matthews' voice. But as the fact that I cannot, I just want to say that keep doing what you're doing. Keep fighting for people who don't know or can't fight for themselves. And this is important work that I hope you all realize just the magnitude of, and I thank you for being here with me. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. ERB.
Point of person privilege, I need to meet.
We'll now hear from the advisory board.
Yeah, Mohammed, advisory board chair. So advisory board has met. We had the final presentation from Clark Hall and the TU room. Both of them are doing really well, but unfortunately, because we cannot meet during exams, they still are technically operating while we saw the end of the reports. But they all are doing very, very well, which is really nice. It was also the first advisory board meeting where we had the incoming people show up in it. So we have the incoming executive, Jacob and me and Annette, and we also had the incoming director of Internet Services here. So that was really nice having all of those people. It was a very busy room, and we also got pizza after a while. So to forget it, it was nice. So yeah, and I'm really looking forward for my summer to work with the exec, to also have Operation Babe, are you okay? You have barely touched your full potential, come to its full potential. So it's really nice. I pulled it up to actually remember the name. So it's really nice I'm really looking forward for that. I'll also be communicating with the board about how to have that communication exactly done between the exec and the board, not to board exec having monthly meetings. Also currently finalizing some stuff about hiring the new secretary for the board. And just a quick shout out to Lily, who have been on the board as long as I have been on the board since the past 2 years, and has have been very informative and very active member of the board. Well, not always a member, but she has been on the board and showing up to all board meetings. So it's really I feel like she deserves a shout out for that, as someone who's been really on the board and actually, funny enough, the multiple years initiated a way to fix the board. So the board really does appreciate that. So thank you. Oh yeah, thank you, Council.
Thanks very much, Adward. All right, final stretch now. We will now hear from the club reports, starting with Apple, after which we will say nerds.
Apple.
Nerds.
Sam Shaw, Apple president. We had our banquet last night at Dismal Vader Center. It was lots of fun. It was on Pi Day where there was free pie for all Apple students. Yeah, everyone's pretty jealous. Our merch is coming in, and we're running our elections tomorrow. That's all I have. Thank you, Council.
Love you, Apple. Okay, now we will play Kiwi. Now we will hear from Chem and Chem, after which we will say news.
Chem and Chem.
News. DJ Campbell, Chem Prez, CM. So far, we've got our banquet coming on the 29th. We're working out like speeches and our trivia. It's like a holiday dance. We're pretty much with that. Our nominations for the club have been extended until Friday. We still have some positions with no nominees, which is why it was extended. We're going to be on Monday, and we'll be doing the trenching period next week. Wrapping up our squash tournament, doing a bunch of like transitional stuff. And then the biggest thing is we have a department town hall next week on Thursday. And I think it's a little bit to do with what Jack mentioned. It's about alternative enrollment methods. Our department's looking at killing and blowing up process engineering and merging it with EdgeChem or like something like that. And they're looking at turning G2, which is the bio stream, into engineering biology, which would be a revamped version of G2 with a biology-rich stream that would take courses in the biology department. It's very much in the preliminary stage. It's pretty much like the dean came in and was like, all across the country, chem programs are like losing applicants, so we need to do something about it. So they're just kind of exploring what people want out of the courses, because our main content is process engineering, and it's a lot of things like Gen Z people don't want to do anymore. So looking for like alternative ways to teach the same knowledge, but with like different contexts and different problems. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, feel free to talk to me later.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Vanessa. We'll now hear from Sybil, after which we will say memes.
Sybil.
Memes.
Not quite here, so I'm going to give a report for her. We had banquet pictures on Tuesday. It went really well. We had a big turnout, and it wasn't big overall. It was shocking for that, but it was good. We also raised and were able to donate about $4,000 to a local charity that helps Kingston homeless youth, and that was from the funds that we raised from Steel Cup. And then we just selected our new civil DSC members for next year. And our last event of the year is a grad versus undergrad volleyball tournament, which I think is on the 3rd.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sybil. We'll now hear from Giro, after which we will say rocks.
Geo.
Rocks.
For first in Geo Rep, we had, yes, Geo President next year. We had, thanks guys, first up against mining last week, lost 7-3 as expected, but still fun. We had our elections today, which went well, merch is in, and then looking forward, we have our last pre-movie night of the semester next week, and banquet next Friday.
Thanks so much, Gio. We now move into the new reports, starting with Side 2 High 5.
2, 5.
So we have this Society by Faculty Board Rep. So we have been mostly working on looking at setting up a joint donation of school supplies across with New Dopey. Thank you for meeting with us. And so looking at ways for people to donate their school supplies, not only as graduating class, but also just younger years, so it can be redistributed back into the system. Because a lot of people don't use it after their one class. We're also making good progress on Thank You Gift. We've been in talks with the arcade game company. We also have set up a little Grizz night for after Iron Ring. There are RSVPs on our Instagram for those who are going to Iron Ring. You also can just show up after the RSVP, but it's much easier for us and them if they know how many people are coming approximately. So please do go fill that out. It will be at 8 p.m. We want to try and run a survey with Iron Ring, but they think those are emails. We're working on the yearbook, as well as Forever Year exec elections are open right now. And we're also working on transition not only for Forever Year exec, but also potentially Site 26, because there's some good knowledge that you'll probably keep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Site 25. We will now hear from Site 26 feet short of the TAM.
Side 26. Rush! Alright, so we got our merch. Oh, yeah, shoot. This is the first time I've done that. James Hosevar, Side 26 president. We got our merch. We got 50 instead of 100. So we're currently working with the supplier and they're cooperating, so we're confident that we'll get the remainder. It's just a matter of when. I've spoken with Kyle Strike, the building manager for the ILC, about putting a table in the ILC lobby to sell our merch. It looks like we'll get that for 12, but that's not confirmed yet.
And I just want to say thank you to everyone at council. These past 8 months so awesome. I'd like to give a special shout out to everyone up in this area. Making council so fun. And while it was a chance that put me here, if I had to choose again where to sit, I'd definitely choose this one. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Side 26. We'll now hear from the best year, Side 7 years, speak a name.
Side 27.
I actually don't know if our president is here. He left. So, Michael Whitman, tell us about it.
Well, signing me out income tax retail services for Michael Whitman right now. No, I'm not on. I'm not on the site as zoning your exec, so I can't speak particularly on what happened, but I would like to say that I am a proud Site 7.
Just to confirm, is there any member of Site 7 year exec with us right now?
Director of Student Life? Any communication? Where's she at?
My name's Zach, Director of Student Life. I haven't actually met with Site 7 year exec since last council, so I don't really know what
All right, cool. Well, we're the best, but sometimes, whatever. No. Okay, we will now hear from Side 2, 8675309.
Side 2, 8.
Hey, Jackson, Side 2A president. We just got our merch, we're going to be distributing that. And then next week, I know at last council I said everyone's welcome, but now it's fully Red Sox funded, so if you're going to come, please pretend you're a resident. But that's great because now it's fully funded, there's going to be food and prizes for everyone. Oh yeah, it's a trivia night for next Thursday from 7 to 9. And it promised.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Side 2A. We are not done yet. We've got statements and questions. Does anyone have a statement and or a question? Yeah. We're not done yet. I don't know which one of you what you're talking about.
I'm gonna go last, so you can let me go first.
Okay, go ahead, Maggie. Yeah. Maggie, maybe.
Hey, great to see you guys. Just for to go back for the question that we had at the first year committee and whether that was updated in the first council, it was. catching up to do. I don't know if you want to do this, but if someone could go through all of the changes that have been made this entire year and just make sure that they're up to date, because if you look at the previous one and then look at the new ones that were passed, it might conflict. So you'll have to start from the beginning. That's my opinion as a previous facility officer, but that's kind of, yeah, because this is a lot of, it was the changes that they made for the summer. So.
If I don't mind the correct response.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Owen University, Agent on my radar, and we're working on it.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to okay.
Thanks so much. Go ahead.
That's WC Press. I'm obliged by bylaw E.3.A.2 to share constitution changes with the EC Club this year. We have direct entry new engineering program starting next year. So we have made changes, both approved by Chloe and Monica, to add a new rep for that position, to reduce our team back to 2 second-year reps to what was before. We had 4 this year because of the whole election mixed up, as well as make the inclusion of an EnerSoc rep up to the discretion of the president and to be elected in September. Because if the president wants to fill that role, they can. So they're not currently being elected right now, but those are the changes we made. And while on another note, like everyone else, while I don't get the privilege of tapping my ring at everyone in this room because of scheduling, I want to thank people for tolerating me / a lot of people in this room who are talking a lot of council. I can admit that sometimes I act a little stuck up, but I appreciate everyone's conversation, input, and help that you've given every other team that you worked with this year. And at council, but I'll save the rest of the sassiness for another time.
Thank you very much. Next on my list is DJ.
My question is about the AMS work update. I was wondering if the allocated admission seats from Artside and Edge is on top of the limit that we've already hit this year with 1,000 students, so that would make it like 1,100 next year, or is that 100 the ones that were given to us this year?
Lucas Baylock, Engineering Center. Isn't that the game? So, Senate approves of enrollment targets, which then the recruitment office does some weird math and magic to try to hit. We missed the target this year, and conveniently hit the other target that was floated. So I'm slightly skeptical of if they're actually listening to the Senate goals. But yes, no, in theory, if we add, in theory, Psi 2-9 should be similar in size to what Psi 2-7 was, and what we asked for Psi 2-8 to be. And then Psi 30 will be what Psi 2-8 actually was, if that makes sense.
I see your point.
Yeah, just I got
Wonderful
confirmation. Jack, quack. I got confirmation from Stacy Shane, who's student services, that their admission target for engineering, is this year for 2-9 is 950. And the target for the previous year, I believe, was 1,000. So they've gone slightly down.
I approved 950.
Was it 950? Okay. So 950 this year. So certainly not bigger for 2-9, maybe a little smaller, but we'll see.
Can I ask another question about the faculty board update?
I'll put you at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Owen.
Just Owen Kesmercy, incoming Director of Governance. Just a quick reminder, especially for all the current year executives, your executive positions are open right now. We really need people to come in. It's always a problem year after year. So please, anyone in this room is interested in your executive, or you can go around reminding people applications close Monday. It's a great way to get involved. You don't need to do the ramp. Just help out the engineering society. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you very much. Izzy.
The interviews are supposed to happen after Friday the 12th, so that would mean for the 2 weeks on Breezy, get your applications in this week, so I can prove it, and you have time to interview before the end of the year.
direct entry stream seats tie at all to the seats that have been added, like the 100 additional seats that have been added? And are there other stipulations or protections in place from that percentage getting greater as years go in? Is that a good conversation they're having at the board?
Jack Walker, direct response. The proposed situation for next year is that we're going to have 25% of our student body be in some form of direct entry program, with any additional growth to engineering after that directed solely to the direct entry programs. So they haven't specifically said that, like, there's nothing saying that they won't expand it more into the general entry stream, if that makes sense, but they have confirmed that they won't be growing the general entry stream anymore.
And Tron and computing are already 15%.
Yes, yeah, so it would be about 10% of like a current year that is in general entry would be next year moving into a direct entry program, and then any additional growth from that would also be into the direct entry programs, and then it's possible they could expand that more into the general entry stream, because there's not been any discussion of that. Like, there's not been any set minimum limits on the general entry, if that makes sense.
Go ahead.
Okay. I did want to go last. Alright,
go ahead.
That's every EC Press. If you are an EC and not going on Quip, come talk to me. Our nominations are open, and we receive more nominations from commerce than EC students. So yeah, it's stupid. So please come talk to me. I'd happy to tell you more about it, but I need it lower, so please help.
Alright, you wanna go last, or Chloe's gotta go?
I usually go last.
You can go last. Okay.
Go
Alright,
ahead.
Connor Mosey, ERB chair. Having seen many year graduate through this council chamber and keep moving forward, I have one thing to ask of council. Following in the footsteps of the great Side 2 Chugga 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 2 and Side 2 No One Likes You When You're 23, I was hoping council could humor me and give us one last Side 2 Forever Frosh, so you can all call us old one last time.
I'll allow it. We will now just look at them at Side 2. We have nothing to hear from them, but we'll now hear from Side 2 forever.
Side 2 4. Old! Thank you, council.
Alright, last but not least, let's get a gift card going up in here.
It's gone. It's gone. It's gone.